We're fighting some rain and high humidity, waiting for a day that we can get our last coats of clear on the wing. In the meantime, we've started buffing out some parts. And there was a good dissertation about buffing on the previous DVD, but we're going to start buffing some parts here while we have time available. Now, the nice thing about buffing, you can just fill in little gaps, like I'm waiting for supper to be ready here. I got a half an hour or so. I can get busy. It isn't something like when you do an alignment or something where you have to really have your concentration up. In my case, I can be watching television while I'm doing this, or whatever. Have company over, be talking to Karen, or. But the point is, I've been really spending the time on these parts. It's all being sanded 1500. Everything's 1500. And I have all the little parts done. I had one part that I had to touch up. That's done. But the big thing that's going to hold us up is we want to have a day. I need to get at least one and maybe two more coats of clear over the letters on the wing. And I know that's going to be a hang-up. I know that's going to be a... Realistically, I know I'm fighting that. Because the weather report said at least 3 and maybe 4 more days of good possibility of rain. And in the last couple of days, it's done nothing but rain on and off. And I won't even think about risking any of this. Now, I'm looking around as I do these parts. I can be real careful and real selective. Any spot that looks the least little bit shiny, I can just get on it a little bit more. Let me just show this up close. And this is telling me this is what I want to have, is perfectly flat, no little shiny spots. The little shiny spots are actually areas that need more sanding. And when I get the whole part totally flat, then of course it's time for Gorhams. And like the point I tried to make is, in a case like this, I'm waiting for supper. So if supper runs an extra 10 or 15 minutes, I'll get 10 or 15 minutes more of sanding. If it takes a half an hour, it won't matter. But there's certain jobs I couldn't do. I couldn't start, as an example, lining up the tail. Or I wouldn't want to start something that requires a lot of artistic creativity, deciding on how to mask off the trim. But in a case like this is just labor. And if you know it's just labor, well, you don't have to devote a lot of brain power to doing this. Once you have the rhythm, and I got my rhythm from doing the smaller parts, I can sit here and dream about all of the things that are still part of this project. What shape do I want the wheel pants to be? How do I, when I start doing the alignment, now you might remember back there, and we have some other projects, shop projects to work on here, when we went to put the tail back in the fuselage, it didn't quite fit because of the paint buildup. Well, Rich Walbridge has run into similar issues of that the fits were right when he built it, but then after you finish it, what happens with dope? It shrinks, it expands, humidity. I don't know what the humidity, so I've been trying to work with Rich on trying to come up with what might be some tentative solutions for his fit issue on his Spitfire. But in the meantime, we're going to be monitoring the fits on this. And the biggest one is the tail going in, because we're dealing with four layers of paint. And I'm not so sure we're not going to have fit issues in the very end. So, but that's a whole nother thing. And once this is all buffed out, that'll be one of the next steps. Now I'm getting ready. I'm almost ready to start this buff out. And if Karen takes another 10 minutes for dinner, well, we'll get it buffed out. Now, just at the end of the day, I get an incredible amount of energy. I don't know, a burst of energy. Because I always want to get one more part done. Sometimes that doesn't play to my advantage either. But the other thing, once I get this buffed out and get the hinges on, then I can get a real feel for what this tail weighs, if I'm in range, and if I have a little bit of extra weight to play with, or if I'm sneaking up on where I don't want to be is overweight. But the option we have is we can always sand some more clear off if we get a little carried away here. And it's always these pointy edges that get to be a problem. I've spent a lot of time dressing off these edges. And that thing with Rich Walbridge, we're going to be working on those fits. And I'm hoping I can help him out. He said he's going to send some pictures in the next couple of days. We'll try to come up with some tentative solution, but this is his first take apart plane though, so maybe we have our expectations real high, but that's okay too. Now here's another trick with this sandpaper. You get to the point where I've sanded, and sanded. So what I've done is wear out like a picture frame. And what I can always do if I'm looking to just use up every square in there, now it's cutting again. And even though I don't try to really make a big deal out of economizing on sandpaper, I don't like to waste it either. Oh, I remember the days when we could just buy M600 by the gallon. It used to be $11 a gallon. It was so nice. Now, forget it. I got to get it from Joe Adamusco when he can get it. Real downer. And that's coming out pretty nice and flat now. Now before I'm going to get ready to do Gorhams, I can see if I candle it, there's still some little spots. See that little spot right in the corner there? Anything little, a little shiny spot right there. All up around the fillets is fine now. But I always try to be very, very selective, because once the sanding's done, then of course the Gorhams it just goes beautifully. And I'll tell you, the house, we're having pulled pork for supper tonight, and she's already got the house smelling like pulled pork, making me hungry and drool while I'm working on my buff out here. Now we're ready to see if this is going to buff up. It always buffs up when you have Gorhams. The power of Gorhams. And once it's dead flat like that, bringing it up. This is the part I really enjoy. The part I really look forward to on every build is that final buff out where it starts to feel nice and look even better, and you can rub your cheeks on it and feel it. And so far, the combination of letting this dry a little bit extra and doing all the sanding along the way, I just want to show this, because I don't want anybody thinking I'm using some kind of trick photography here to make this. The magic of Gorhams. I never stop being impressed with Gorhams. Now you can see where we've got it sanded out there. Oh, it even feels nice. You can see your finger in it, of course. But the whole thing is getting it sanded out 1500. And no pits, no little errors in there. And the final thing, trying to avoid having a hunger strike here while the house smells like pulled pork. Well, that really buffed up nice. Anytime, well, we're getting a step ahead of it while we're waiting for some weather to put that clear on a wing. Anytime we can get even one small step ahead, it's free roast beef. Or is it free pulled? I should say, totally free pulled pork. So this is what's been making the house smell like pulled pork all night. I think I'll have some pulled pork for supper. And notice he's eating whole wheat rolls so he can live even extra life beyond the life he has. Stay healthy. Eat pulled pork.
Pulled pork, yes.
I don't know.
Oh,
Thanks.
you got on your shirt now.
So this morning looks like another gloomy day. Not raining, but we don't know the humidity till I check the weather for the day. But not sure we're going to get any clear, but I know we'll get some buffing. Now this is not funny, but we turn on the TV this morning and my son-in-law Rob and I have done the paperwork to get gun permits, and this morning he was robbed. We got up to a phone call that they broke into both of his cars and took the GPSs. So he's all hot to trot to go down and get his gun permit today. We're going to go get guns. And we want to have a gun anyway, so I don't want it for that purpose, but I want to have a friend of mine who does a lot of target shooting. He invited us many times to go up to his club, and Les, of course, is a big gun guy. But look at this, it's on the news. The day that Rob gets his car robbed. Unbelievable. Now, I thought I'd get up real early this morning. I actually got up before the birds because I wanted to get, if at all possible, in between the raindrops, try to get some of that clear on, but it looks like the humidity is really high again. It's fighting me now. Now, the parts that we buffed out yesterday, really, I look at them the next day and they really have a nice glow, a nice shine. I think we're on the road to success here. The rudder buffed out real nice. But this is what we're striving for, of course. I've got one more of these little parts that this needed a touch-up. I'll let that dry one more day. In fact, what I'll do with this part, I can put another coat of clear on this. This is the outer part. This will be my little test piece for seeing if we have too much humidity. If the humidity goes down later, but right now it's out of the question. Right now it's time to set up the table and get ready to buff. Buffing is so much fun. Early in the morning, Dravalia and buffing compound. Now here's one of the things Kent Tyser years ago turned me on to. Microfibers. You can buy these in any AutoZone. They have a million uses, of course. Washing cars, cleaning, drying, polishing. You can figure out other things. For instance, Karen uses these on her glass stovetop that nothing else seemed to clean it as well as these. These work great. Pretty inexpensive. It's under $5 for, what are they, 3, so it's $1.50 a piece. Now, when I get to doing the bigger parts, these are real handy. So I always like to have, and I like to have brand new ones. Now, you can wash them, but whenever you wash them only microfibers. You don't wash microfibers in socks and sheets and stuff. So what I do, I have about 50 of these, some in the garage for the motorcycle, some for the model planes, some in the cars. So what I do is, at some point in time, I let them all build up to where they're all dirty and make one laundry load out of them, and then of course dry them, and they're just back to like being brand new. But these are really handy when it comes to buffing out bigger parts. I did my little test piece. I want to see if that's going to dry up without any fogging. But again, if even the slightest hint of fogging up here, that's going to be the end of that for the day. Well, it looks okay so far. It's not raining, but it feels humid. But what I'll have to do is, if I do get some clear on that lettering, is get it in the back room while Karen's not here. But that'll get us a little bit ahead, but I don't want to rush it, of course. It's always a fine balancing act. Now what this will do, if we can get this piece buffed out today, and it's too humid to paint, see, I'm trying to plan this out both ways. Give myself both contingencies, then what I can do is, I can do the hinging. I can hinge the rudder, and I can hinge the elevators up to this point, which would be nice. Now, of course, because we booger up the threads on this when you put the vice grip pliers, I've got to kind of get this out. Not a big deal, just something I always gives me good practice for taking this part on and off. Now we're going to get to another part with this, what I wanted to mention, and because of Rich Walbridge having these fit issues, And actually, I talked to Doran this morning before, actually he calls me during breakfast. He's got a similar issue of what he's trying to do is use primer to build up the surfaces. And I said, you know, I wasn't too thrilled about that possibility, but Doran, pretty creative guy. Maybe we can see if he's got any ideas I haven't thought of. His idea was that he could build up the edges with primer and then just sand them to get that perfect fit. Well, I don't know. But he sounded enthusiastic about it. And I'm never discounting anything. There's a possibility that we could learn something along the way here. Learn not to put this bolt in crooked. You believe this? Now that bolt is in crooked. Let me force it out. Some days you just can't win. So the deal is this afternoon at 3 o'clock we're going for our gun permits. Now you would think, and I've argued this point all along, I've never had a gun, never been interested in guns, less piqued by interest in guns a little bit, but our town, believe it or not, our town is in a nice area, but the town next to it is not. And they have a bridge in between the two towns, which was closed for a couple of years because of construction. During the time that bridge was closed, to get from the nasty town to our town, you had to go all the way around. Now that they've opened that bridge, there's a rash of car thefts, and the biggest thing is GPSs. And if you lock your door, they break the windows to get in. And, you know, now, what poor Rob, he had his GPS taken once, and they did $750 worth of damage to the car. He got the car fixed, got a new GPS, they just robbed it again. Well, I don't know. He kept it in the glove compartment, they broke in and took it out of the glove compartment. So I don't know about that either. But in my case, I like to just let it be known in the neighborhood that I'm a gun crazy guy, so maybe that'll keep thievery down. Nobody will come in and steal a Spitfire or something. I don't know. But I'm definitely going to investigate the possibility. Not investigate, I'm going to go get a permit. Now, next step on this. Let's get serious here. The fillet looks like it's going to need ever so little work. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that and not have to re-clear it. But the first thing we need to do, of course, is block sand everything down. And this part gave us such fits and headaches along the way that I'm just thrilled that it came out as good as it did already. But this will get all blocked down in the next hour or two, and then we'll buff it out and maybe even get to use those microfibers on a part this big. Now, actually, believe me, there are a lot of people who would just leave that finish just the way it is. It is smooth, but it's not even close to being as nice as it's going to be once it's buffed out. And it seems like, given the fact that this paint has dried a couple extra days up by a heating vent, what's happened is the 1500 is cutting it beautifully, way better than I thought it would. I'm not even gonna think about changing that. But it looks like that little part, that little test part, now I usually give it a half an hour, but once it's dry to the touch, hasn't fogged over, I know I got a shot at getting some clear on there. Again, we're working around this crazy weather. This is the winter of tribute. It's just a winter that, you know, it's unbelievable, the weather that's been up here. This is the most ice we ever had on a pond. Actually, it's only a couple of days now that we don't have ice on the pond. And we got to see our big primary fish. I call him the Big Kahuna. Looks like he's made it through the winter okay. We don't see him for, 4 months, 5 months, 3 months, whatever. And you never know when that ice melts if there's going to be dead fish underneath or what. One year we lost all the fish. Anyway, beside the point, let's get busy sanding. Talk is cheap. And I got another project coming up. I spoke to John Brodak last night. He's going to be sending me a cowl. His brother and John are building identical B-25s, and they have some special cowls they want me to make. And the part that comes with the kit apparently is not up to, not up to his standard, and I think we can make a lot nicer part for him. And we're always glad to do that, of course, so we're looking forward to seeing that in the mail in the next couple days. Yeah, I'm interested with Doran to see if that thing with the primer, maybe that's something Rich Walbridge could, that technology he could use. I don't know. And we'll see what Doran comes up with. Pretty creative guy, I have to give him credit. And he's been a good friend for many years, of course, sharing the things we all enjoy. Now, what I was really interested in seeing is how this fillet is going to come out when I get this block down. And I just need to sand it until I have no shiny spots. Now I've got all the, it's this part anyway, almost all blocked down, but you can still see there's just a few little moon craters. We'll just keep sanding it till we get rid of all the moon craters. Now here's the final little thing around here, is getting around this little, I don't know, the access for that screw. Now I'm trying not to cut through on the paint because I don't want to have to take the paint out of that tube if I don't have to. If I do, then it leaves an area there where the paint is vulnerable, and if I can just carefully go around it, I think I'll be way ahead of the game. Of course, that remains to be seen. But it looks like our little part, as this time has gone by, a part is drying up nicely, so I'm going to give a shot to putting some clear on that in the back room while I have this opportunity, while Karen's not around. Because these are the things that are very difficult to do when Karen's around. I don't like to do it. But every different part of the country has something they have to work around. Boy, I know I got many calls from people in Florida that complain they can't paint for a whole half of the year or a third of the year. I can really relate to that. Anyway, this is going to be our little part now. If we can't get that painting, and again, while that's drying, I can be doing the hinging. That'll be one thing. And the whole objective of any take-apart plane is there's always something to work on, that while something's drying, while something's cooking, while your coffee's brewing, whatever. Now, it's pretty nice that John is doing the a B25. We have a lot of documentation we can give him on that. And I'll see what this cowling looks like. You know, when you buy a kit part, it's usually, well, it's not made to the highest world-class standards, especially if it's an RC kit. They want to get them out cheap. We'll take a look at it. I'm sure we can come up with something. And in the worst of all worlds, if we have the plans to the plane, we can do our own. Now that we have a lathe, we can get a piece of wood or something and make our own plug, but we'll have to see what it looks like. All right, we're all down. It's time to buff. Now usually if I polish with the Gorhams and then clean it and do any other cleaning or any polishing, once it's buffed, I've even buffed it with microfibers. That doesn't seem unreasonable either, but just see how this is going to go. Now another little trick you can do, see, when you have delicate parts like this, I don't want to wear the paint off the leading edge, but I can do up and down, and this way, like say out on this vulnerable little tip, I can get some of that done. Instead of having to press my hand behind it. And I don't want to wear the paint off the edge if possible. I don't want to get any in the hinge pockets either, if possible. But let's see how this is going to polish up. And I think one thing all modelers have always dreamed about is the day somebody comes up with a finish that's lighter than dope, stronger, and doesn't need to be buffed. And when they do that, congratulations, because I've been waiting a long time for it too, but In the meantime, this is not so bad. Now, here's what I wanted to try at this point in time. Take the microfibers. Now the black, of course, polishes up like a mirror. That's a given, but the yellow is just as bright on this. Now, Joe Adamusco at one time, maybe he does it all the time, he kept track of the hours it took him to buff out a one-piece plane. He said it was a little over 40. Now, I'm not sure that I'm ahead of him, behind him, because when it's in pieces, it's definitely a lot easier, of course. Now, once I'm real happy with that, and these microfibers just do by the way, these are great for waxing cars, motorcycles, cleaning plexiglass, among other things that I've used them for. Something every modeler should have. And thank you, Kent Tyser, who, I'm not sure who gave him that idea, but certainly works for us. Right now you can tell it's clean because you can see fingerprints on it. And this lets you see any spot that you missed. You can just go back right over it with some Gorhams or some of that finessed stuff. I always like to stand back a little bit and then after spending a couple hours on one part like this. But anyway, I want to see if we can get some clear on that wing lettering now. That part is drying up perfectly. It may be that we're going to duck a little bullet here. The humidity is 68%, which I like to be under 70, but it doesn't really matter because what's in my shop is totally different. And what I did is before the half hour I started this, I turned the heat up so it dried the air out. And Karen's not here, so this is a good time to do it. Maybe might be coming out. Don't count on it. Now, just to be ultra safe, what I'm going to do is paint the bottom, let it dry before I try to do the top. Just in case there's any issue I have to deal with. I'll let this dry, give this a half hour to dry before I do the top. Look at the sun just comes out as I'm doing this. So we'll give this a half an hour. If it doesn't cloud up, we'll do the top. Well, so far so good. It looks like that's working out. And needless to say, we're not going to push our luck here. did that coat. Well, I'm going to let it dry overnight. I'm not even going to take a chance that we're going to get too cute here, because we have a couple more days of buffing, and we certainly have days of other projects to work on here, but we can get one coat on tomorrow, and I think we'll be ready to do the wing. Well, we actually didn't even start the fuselage yet, so it's going to be more than a couple of days. Maybe it is 40 hours, Joe, I don't know. Okay, so while everything's drying up over there, we'll see if it's our lucky day. So far, I'm looking at it with one eye while I'm looking at these parts. Now, the idea here is that I just about can't feel this. I don't know if it's going to need another coat, but I'll get one done, and of course they're pretty much the same, and see if I'm going to need another coat. If I need another coat, I just want to put it over the decals, not over the whole part. But the easiest thing right now is just to block sand everything out with some 1500, hand sand it, whatever you want to call it, and see if I'll know when it's sanded out. If I don't see any shiny spots in there, it'll be ready to buff. This is the main part I'm concerned with, to see if I have enough clear over this. Now, the other point of this is I don't want to have way too much. I don't want to have 1/4 of an inch of clear on this or turn it into decoupage or whatever. Then I'm getting into that heavier and heavier, unnecessarily heavy finishing, and I don't want to do that either. That's another. So I'm walking a fine line here, same way I'm walking a fine line with that humidity issue. I mean, sure, I could just wait till summer. That would work too, but, well, boy, it's something we have to deal with. Now, this is why I wanted to have a garage with a dedicated spray booth and a dehumidifier, and if we can, in the next year, over the winter maybe, that'll be one of our projects. One of our projects is to redo the whole shop, but we're not going to build a spray booth inside the house, that's for sure. But I know Bill Rutherford had a really nice spray booth. Richard Oliver, of course, Les Demet, they all have dedicated areas to paint, unlike Wendy, who's got the the undedicated area. Well, let's see how this is blocking out. One thing, the stuff is sanding beautifully because we've given it a little extra time. I think we're fine. That's about as flat as you can get it. No, you can't even feel it if you close your eyes. That's the trick. Close your eyes, you can't even feel it. Now the easy part, just sanding out the rest of the flaps. Now here's one thing I really had a lot of concern with in the time that I was working on these flaps, that they stayed straight, because these are A-grain flaps. These are not C-grain, and as I'm sanding this one out, I figured I'd give it a check. It looks like it stayed, well, within a range that I think it won't be a problem. But I was really, when I didn't have C-grain wood, I was really nervous, because I have made A-grain flaps that at this point, when you're sanding and buffing right at the very end, and it'd go into Pretzelville. So maybe it is our lucky day. And by the way, as the time is going by, not a drop of fog, so tomorrow we can get another coat on that. And the day after that, we may be looking at starting to get that part sanded out. In the meantime, we got the fuse ready to work. That'll be a whole day to work on a fuse. And we'll finish up the flaps and maybe get the hinges in today. Well, it's really a crazy day. The sun is out, but it's not looking like it's going to be the sunniest day of the year. And I know for a fact, see, I have inside information. I know John DeTavio and Jacobone are down by the field today. I found out from Jacobone's wife where he is. And they didn't invite me to go flying because they know I'm busy here. But anyway, I want to get this done. And flying season isn't here yet, that's for sure. Even though we got a little sun out there, it's not really a crazy good day. And the more time I get in on this now, I really am excited about seeing this all in one piece and all put together. get all the little peripheral details made on it. And boy, when it starts at this point in time, it's very rewarding. Once you get even just a little bit of the shine on there. And boy, when it starts coming up like that, that's the reason for being a modeler. Now this day is playing out a little differently than I thought it would. It actually got pretty sunny out there. I'm very surprised. So what I'm going to try to do is toward the end of this day, maybe get that second coat of clear on there. Because again, they're predicting rain, and when I get these gaps in between the rain, I like to take advantage of them, if possible. Oh, these are buffing out nice. There's just some days, I don't know what it is, that it just seems like it's buffing out nice. And when it's the paint is talking to you, and this is one of those days. And boy, that to me, that giving it that really nice glow, oh man, that changes the whole look of the plane. Oh, once that shine is on there, oh, that I don't know how many other people enjoy that as much as I do, but there's just something. And I can remember like it was yesterday, the first time I ever buffed out a plane was that purple Valkyrie of Harold Price's, and I remember just feeling warm and fuzzy all over. I want to see if I can get another coat of clear on that before it gets dark out there. Well, everything is dried up. Looks like it may rain, but the humidity is way down. Yeah, it may be coming in. Actually, there's a little break in the sun. And I've got, while this clear is drying, I wanted to get the side of the house painted, so I'll just babysit this for about a half an hour, and then, well, I got to clean a pond out too. This is so unbelievable. There's no ice on the pond. All the time I was chopping ice, now I just got to scoop out the debris that still falls in it every day. Now what I've been doing, I've been using this piece as my test piece. This is one of the pieces that the wind's blowing the opposite way now. What I want to do, I want to just give this piece a little time to dry. If it doesn't fog over, home free all. Well, everything looks reasonable anyway. Just gotta watch the birds are nesting here. I don't wind up getting some nesting material on my paint job. It's such a big help if I can have the sun at a position I can handle. Boy, does that make it easy. And I only really need to go where the letters are. Never have to worry about putting too much paint on the outer tip. These birds. I see you. I hear you cranking. That. Get up there and make some fledgies. Karen and I need fledgies, not yappers. See, by this point in time, the paint is really relatively thin because I've been putting just a little more thinner in on each coat. So right now it's really thin, and what'll happen is I'll just be putting, I might even put one more coat on after this. wind is blowing. Now, while this is drying up, I'm going to see if I can get some of the foundation on this house painted. Well, it looks like we've beat the humidity gods here, hopefully. But part of it is that the heat in the house is up because it's still cold outside, so the humidity inside the house is not a problem. And we'll see how this dries up in an hour or so. We have a unique situation on the side of the house. The bricks are 100 years old. They're falling apart. I've wire brushed them, done a million things, power washed them. Try to clean them up, ready for paint, and today's the day. I want to see if I can get this paint to stick. Again, it may be my lucky outdoor day too. Now what this is special paint. It's Benjamin Moore paint. We use this on the foundation of the posts that hold the porch up, and I've got enough. I hope I have enough left over to do that. The foundation side by the driveway, and it's special. They call it blackout paint. It's made so when they're going to change the lines, when they have the yellow lines on the road or parking lot, they can black them out. They call it blackout paint. It's really good stuff. It's about 40 bucks a gallon around here too. But this is supposed to, our friend at the hardware store, Dominic, said this will cover anything in one coat. Well, we're going to put him to the test right now. See how rough some of this is, how crappy it is, but you know what? Even a power washer didn't take most of it off. I wire brushed it. I did everything you possibly could, so some of that paint is really on there. We're going to see how our friend Super Blanco works. I guess we're going to find out. See, all of these things, what I love about them is it's easy to talk the talk. Yeah, that'll cover in one coat. Yeah, well. But our friend Dominic at the hardware store, he's never wrong. That guy is the man when it comes to this kind of stuff. So we're going to find out an hour or two from now. This is about the most fun you can have. It is really fun doing this. You know what this does? This makes buffing out a plane seem like fun. All you need is a couple hours out here and you get some religion. Yeah. Gotta tough it out, chickie. Now when that's done, that's going to add a nice dimension. Of course it's going to be, this is not going to be a 5-minute job. Why do I get the feeling I'm going to be out here the rest of the day? I guess I'll just have to tough it out. A lot of scraping, wire brushing. It's a lot more fun building model planes. More talk about a labor of love. This took so long, I can't believe I did this. And I'm only half done. Oh, man. And it's getting colder and damper out here, but I'm going to tough this out. This is the time when it's tough it out Chickie time. Chickie would be impressed with this. With our new porch, our new grill, we got to at least have this look like it isn't Beirut. Boy, I'll tell you. Sanding and buffing is going to be a joy tomorrow. I will learn to appreciate it. That was really labor intensive. Now, as I'm doing tonight's email, well, my paint's drying outside and it started to rain just as the paint dried. Oh, it couldn't be any luckier. Got this from Rich Walbridge. I think he's going to get, but I'm not sure. He's going to get Bob Brookins to mix him some custom colors. And needless to say, this is one of my favorites. This almost, the silver Spitfire, almost became the blue Spitfire for me. And I'm absolutely sure Joe Adamusco is in full approval here, and I think Bob Brookins can get him some great paint. Hey, the stuff Bob got us for this model, I just never take it out in the sun without saying thank you, Bob Brookins. Now I'm going to have to be speaking to Rich, I guess in the near future, about he has some issues with the cal fits and different things that I'm not sure what we could be doing about it. And I've got some issues from Doran. Again, we were emailing each other back and forth with these ideas. As soon as we get some photos, we'll for sure pass them on and share anything we learn. Now, this is pretty interesting. Look at this Spitfire here. No roundels on the bottom. That's pretty neat. I never noticed that before. Okay, Karen's home from her art class. She's going to do Monet water lilies.
With the Chinese bridge.
The Chinese bridge.
Okay,
You got the aspect ratios different. Did you account for that?
No.
See, this is longer and narrower.
Yes, the problem is the canvas was a certain size.
Oh.
So she told me to do the tree, this is a third of the way up.
Yeah, okay, you're adjusting. It's like you're taking silly putty and...
So what I'm going to do down here, I'll add another layer of lilies, that's all.
Yeah. So it'll be Karen Monet's water lilies.
Well, it's Impressionism, so...
Of course it is. It's what you want it to be, as we always tell everybody. Do your own thing, Monet. Now, it's just funny that in the people we go to see in Vermont, the Carabellos, they have this painting hanging in their house, that exact painting.
I didn't even know
I'm sure
that.
it's not the real one, it's a copy of
I'm
it.
sure not.
But then I'm not the real one either. Dave had a great saying tonight. He said, if you were born a Kennedy, you can never be a Windy. What a great
Sounds
saying.
good.
Not sure what he meant by it, though. Great. This morning, 60% chance of rain all day, and it just started drizzling. What a way to start the day. So the weatherman says it's going to rain. Karen says it's going to rain. The birds say it's going to rain. And it's raining. I'm kind of glad we got that clear on yesterday. And the birds say, what do birds always say? Fill the feeder, Wendy. Just go out, fill this feeder constantly, because we're hungry and we're making nests and we're going to have fledgies soon. So if you want fledgies, fill the feeder. Now, how could you not like these guys? How could you not like these guys as I plan out my rainy day activity? I try to get a little inspiration here on this rainy day. Looking at the parts we already have buffed, that'll get me going. That's almost as good as an extra cup of coffee. That is really, at this point in time, you really appreciate that you've taken the slow, predictable way to a good finish. Okay, this will be the next part. Once that's buffed, then the only thing we're going to be waiting for is a good day to put one more coat of clear on that wing, and that wing will be ready to go. And we'll be buffed out in probably 2 or 3 more days. And we'll start the assembly, or if it rains, we're going to start putting hinges in and do some of the minor assemblies ahead of time. No, I'm just looking around as for any spots that really are going to need some extra work. So far I don't see any, but as you start block sanding these out, of course, that could change. So it's always easier for me to start in a predictable spot, work my way forward, work on an area about the size of a playing card. And just see, now this should block right down, should sand right down, but no problem. And we were expecting today, if it didn't rain, well, we don't know how it's going to work out. The contractors want to come back to try to address one of the little problems we have with the stones, that the the cement in between the stones has been leaving a white stain on everything. They were going to power wash it or do something. Not sure what they're going to do. But it's raining, and that's why I like to get the paint done when the opportunity comes up that I can do it. I don't like to let one of those days slip by. Oh yeah, that's coming right back down. Now even after sanded with 1500, it's got somewhat of a gloss. And this is one of the things I always address. You see these little shiny spots in the corner? I want to get up into the corners. Up here, where there's an edge, I want to get a very defined razor edge on that. And then what I'll do is work my way up and playing card pieces. Just start at one end here and work my way right up. Once again, this tool has been really good for getting down in there. I've really fallen in love with this tool in the last, well, in this whole couple last projects here that we've used it. It really allows you to get right in that scoop. There's really no other way I know of, unless you have little tiny fingers, that you can work your way down in there. Or in a lot of cowl scoops, ordinary cowl scoops. That's one of the good things that, one of our little inventions, a little piece of a tune pipe with a variable diameter. And what I've been doing is just putting a 1500 with the point sticking in there and holding it. And just like that, and it allows you to really get down in there. And that's one of those things that you can't fool your eye. Your eye sees a scoop and it wants to look down inside. It can't be that 1/8 of an inch in there it's not sanded. Boy, when you feel the one that's sanded and the one that isn't sanded, night and day. Night and day. You know what's happening, the guys are trying to work on this grout issue that we have, and you know what, it's not working. What it is, they had bags of grout that some of it didn't cure or harden, and it's a mess. And so what they're going to try to do is get rid of all the grout in between, but I'm not so sure that's going to work. Always an adventure. The adventure of life just never ends. You know, as soon as they started the power washers, there go the birds. Bye-bye birds. Birds, they don't like machinery. They prefer Windy having coffee in the morning. Sweet Windy. So we're going to see, and don't get my motorcycle wet either. We're going to see how this Grady venture evolves. I'm not so sure. Now they're going to try my power washer too. Now as I'm finishing up the final parts of the fuselage here, I've got to make a couple of decisions. What I have to do is weigh this part. I know I have a limit beyond which I don't I don't want to have it weigh any more than that, to be in keeping with what I found works really well for me. And I'll go to my notebooks. Now, if I'm way under that, I'm going to take this whole fuselage and put 2-part on it. If it's close, if I'm right up on that cusp, I'll just put a little bit up on the nose and that's it, and live with the joint. And if I'm overweight, which you never know until you actually get to this point, because no more clear will go on here except if we put some 2-part on. But I'll do it based on how much this part weighs. And I know this part on the Testarossa and the Novanta and the Spitfire, I have a very predictable weight. I don't remember what it is in grams, but we'll have to look at it. And because this is even a smaller model, I'd like it to be a little lighter, smaller wing. But again, the whole thing is that we have a weight and we're not going to exceed it. But if we're under it, we can put on the whole part, 2-part. And that way you don't have to deal with the joint. And it does a nice thing. See, around here it would fuel-proof the whole nose, fuel-proof everything where the tank vents are. But if we're already over on the weight, then I think we'll live with not having it. And the only reason we have to do that is because with the Rojets we usually wind up using 10% fuel. If we were using 5% fuel, that wouldn't really be necessary. But sometimes the 10 fuel, if you get it on raw, it can be a problem now. And it's usually a problem right up in here, under here where it drips, where the vents, where the tank vents are. So, but it'll be done based on what this part weighs when I'm done with it. Look at the steam coming off of this. That'll make the next part of the sand out even better. It's coming along. And I've got it all blocked and flat. I just need to know the final weight. Okay, now we're ready to make our decision on if we're going to put 2-part on this. And what we do is we weigh the fuselage, the tailpiece, the rudder, everything that comprises. If we had a cowl, we'd weigh that too. Everything that comprises the fuselage. Now, when I go back to my notes, and I go back to the Novanta and the Testarossa, which I did a side-by-side comparison on, I take out the fuselage information. Testarossa was 433, the Novanta was 339. Of course, remember, Testarossa is a much bigger fuselage. Spitfire was 369. Okay, I'll be right there. And the Tribute was 347. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, they're not making any progress out there, I can tell. Yeah, I know, they're not making any progress, Car. They're spinning their wheels like I did the other day. No, they didn't say anything yet. Let me get back to this. So, what I can see is I'm somewhere in the middle. So what I'm going to try to do is put on the absolute thinnest coat, and it'll allow me to coat the whole fuselage, this whole piece. Then what happens is if I don't do that, there'll be a joint somewhere here that you'll always see. So it'll probably add a half an ounce, I'm not sure. But what that buys me is then it'll be this section here, especially where the tank is, it'll be a lot more fuel proof when I'm using the 10%. Now this is what I like about having a database, is I can go back in here and see what every one of these things weighed every step of the way, and then do a comparison. Now what this means is every one of these planes came out to be a very competitive weight. So, and it looks like we're right in the middle. We're not the lightest, and we're certainly not the heaviest, so we're right in the middle. Now what it means is if our wing is a little heavier than what we would like, we're kind of, at least we have a little cushion here now. So what I'm going to do is carefully do a touch-up on this. There's a couple little spots where I'm trying to get where they are. Right in the fillet there was a tiny little spot I wanted to cover. Just put one dot of black ink on it. Wipe this down with M600 first, get all the fingerprints off it. And as soon as I can break into what those guys are doing out there, I'll airbrush it on, that's for sure, and the thinnest coat possible. And now I know also, when I'm done, all of this doesn't mean anything if this weight, I'll know what it was before I put it on and after. And then of course a very small amount will come off when I buff it, but not a lot. And with 2-part, if you weigh a 2-part and you put it on a plane, that's what it weighs. It doesn't really outgas like dope does. It doesn't get lighter as every day goes by. In fact, at the end of the first day, you can pretty much figure what you've added to the plane. And that's why I don't want to, as an example, I don't want to do this part. Well, I don't want to, and if this plane came apart like a Yashenko Shark does, I wouldn't even do the back piece. It's only up here, and it's only because we're we like to run 10% fuel, and we like to run Rojet fuel. So, and I love having a database. It's absolutely no money. It takes a matter of minutes over the years for each plane you build to accumulate the data. And it tells me right now, as an example, if I was at 450, I'd say, well, no clear. Sorry, no clear, baby. That's the way it works. And if I was at, say, at 320, I'd say, well, we'll put 2 coats on, because I don't want these parts to be so light that they don't serve us well. They don't hold up in service. And I know what the parts weigh that make a plane that the wing doesn't fold and the motor doesn't vibrate. And so we want to carry those weights. We like to be on the light side, but we certainly don't want to have a wing that a 10-ounce wing that as soon as you do a wing over, boom, and a wing folds. It's a very complicated balancing act to figure this out. Oh, and here's what I didn't do. I didn't subtract for the handle. Half ounce out of that. I got to subtract out of that. So hey, shame on me. See when you're not paying attention. You need more Gevalia coffee. So let me subtract that out. Well, shame on me for not paying attention. I'm so excited about those guys out there. They're power washing. Yeah, I had that written down so I wouldn't have to take the handle off and on. So now, what this brings us to, it's even lighter than a Novanta. So what it means is we definitely can put the 2-part on. Now, the Novanta came out to be a very low 60-ounce plane. I think it was 61. But we're not fighting to make it a 59-ounce plane. What we want to do is make sure we're in that range. So that was a little bit of a good catch on my part, and been listening to those 2 power washers going out there for so long. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to figure out when we can slide in the ultimate here is, and just double check that I haven't. See, a lot of times here's another problem. When I do my aggregate weight, the weight of the wing, I know ahead of time how much tip weight is in there, the asymmetry in the weight. In this case, it's a ½ ounce. So when I weigh the wing, I'm going to always deduct that ½ ounce, because that's in reality, that's tip weight that's already in the plane. So for right now, and I have all of the wing weights and the tail weights and everything, and it took me a matter of minutes to do this over the course of the build, and now I'm at the position where I can tell where we are relative to building what I hope is going to be a very competitive plane. And not only, it's not like it's a bragging thing to see who can build the lightest plane. Who can build the lightest plane that the motor runs well? Because you could just leave the motor mounts and doublers out and it'll be 3-4 ounces lighter, and good luck if you ever chip a prop. We've seen the noses come off planes, even at the Nats. Or you can build a real ultralight wing and it folds. You can build a bell crank at a 16 plywood. It'll break. It's a delicate thing. How strong does it have to be to serve the need we want? And what we were looking for is unlimited life. But the really good news that tells me is I can put that whole fuel-proofing 2-part, and there'll be no joint. That'll be one more thing, one more little upgrade. And I can get it all inside the cowl here with the airbrush. And then I can come back here and weigh it and see what it weighs, what the weight will be after it. I'll have a very accurate weight. I thought there wouldn't be many things in life worse than listening to a power washer for 7 or 8 hours. There is, listening to 2 of them out there at the same time. Now I want to wipe this whole part down with M600, give it a little dry time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some of the material. It's stuff that I've gotten from Bob Brookins. I want to, and this is to get all the fingerprints off, of course. Because in the 2-part, if you get a fisheye, boy, it's very disappointing. It really shows a lot worse than it does in dope, in my opinion, anyway. Dope is very forgiving in terms of fisheyes, and the other thing with the 2-part, if you were just going to do the nose, I would not want to see the joint, and that's very difficult. I've made it disappear, and then 2 weeks later it seems to want to, you put it out in the sun and it comes back. So, but there's no substitute for making sure this is, and I'll wipe this several times. just no chance at all that I'm going to have a famous last words every time I say something like that. And they are having minimum amount of impact on this issue that we have out there with the pavers. And I think, I had George look at it over the weekend, and I looked at it, and I think what they have is, it's just bad material. The stuff that, what amounts to be the cement part of it, the kicker, is not mixed in well with the product. And it's coming up in chunks, it's coming up between the grooves, and it's leaving white powder on everything, and they're getting pretty frustrated out there too, not to mention how frustrated I am. And Karen was not entertained by it either. Anyway, I'll get this perfectly cleaned, and I'm going to mix the material. And what I want to do is, I want to do a little test part. I'll find something around the shop to paint, and then I want to see that it tacks up and hardens out in the 2-hour window that it's supposed to. Now the reason for that is, whenever I have material that's more than a year old, I always like to test it. A test only takes an hour or so, sometimes less. But this material is over a year old, and Bob Brookins sent me some new kicker, brand new kicker. But the material is old, and I really don't have much of a choice right now because nobody around here sells that material. And so, well, Bob did a good job of supplying me with the kicker, but I'll just play it safe and do the test anyway. That's about as clean as it's going to get. I got all the little touch-ups around the fillets done, and I'll feel a lot better if I can do a little test. This is the stuff Bobby Brookins sent me, and we've used this several times already. It's a 4-to-1 mix. This is the hardener he sent. Oh, he even put the date on there. Good man. And he thinks 4-to-1, yep. I always check this stuff. Now, I like to, what I want to do is I want to mix a test batch. And I know this is overkill. I'm going to mix a test batch, put it on something and make sure it dries, because this material really is over a year old. It's probably 2 years old, in fact. I don't even know. At Brookins Body Shop, doesn't have a date. 06. Yeah, it's 3 years old. So, but my understanding is the paint never goes bad. It's only the hardener. Maybe none of it goes bad. And I used to keep the hardener in the fridge, but again, I don't know what happened. The hardener went bad, and that was the end of it. Now, when I used to paint Imron, one of the tricks was that you'd use more hardener than, it used to be 3-to-1, and you'd mix it 2-to-1. The material would kick off the same. Look at it, boy. Bob, put some good tape on this. This is a real duct tape. But I don't want to experiment with the mixture, but what I do want to do, and I just want to make sure, because that material is old. And you might be thinking, oh, why doesn't he just go to the store and buy another gallon of stuff? Well, they don't sell it around here. That's the problem. And the stuff they do sell, I'm not happy with. When I've used it in the past, the substitute material has been not as good as the stuff I got from Bob. And I don't know if this is more expensive or it's Keystone. Rich Oliver had some good stuff, but again, I don't have any, and it's too late in the game here to, they weren't selling it around here. Look at this nightmare of a thing getting a lid off. Wow. Bob, you're making me a lot of work here. But I guess when you ship this, of course we're shipping it illegally. Nancy Pelosi probably wouldn't be real happy finding out that we're shipping this stuff. Holy mackerel, I gotta go get a new razor. Well, it took me long enough to get the lid off. But anyway, what I want to do is just mix a small batch up. And the whole idea of this is, well, we're gonna find out if I'm right or wrong. Let's get back on from there. Is I just really would like to know. That's going to be too much. Sorry. I have a little scratch on the glass here where 4-to-1 is. Okay. Famous last words. But in the past, doing Imron and doing that 2-to-1 thing, we had some real nice finishes. I actually won a couple of concourse awards. That stuff was brutal to work with. Boy. Toxic, beyond toxic. Stink the house. It would smell that way for a month. Well, it's still liquid, that's a good thing. 4-to-1, right on the money. How do I know that? Because I've carefully metered this out with the glass before. Another thing I remember when using any of these 2-parts, never mix it with a wooden stick. I'm not sure we're going to be able to thin this, but I have some thinner for this material, but what I want to see is when I spray this. Now it'll serve another purpose too. If there's anything left in that airbrush, it'll get rid of it in one stroke of the pen. If I don't have a meltdown from listening to those lawn blowers out there. Power washers and lawn blowers, and then a compressor kicks on, just in case a few of your brain cells aren't dead yet. Alright, now we need something to test. What do we got? I'm going to go spray one of those contractors. See if he thinks it's funny. Make sure the materials mix good. And I'd always rather be safe than sorry. A little background music here. Oh man. Trickle B, this should dry within 2 hours. Our day is, we got more than 2 hours to go, so what I'll do is, if this dries up the way I want, at the end of the day, the last thing, before Karen and I go to our dancing lesson, tonight is Foxtrot lesson, I'll mix a new batch, or clean that airbrush out right now, because if that stuff hardens in the airbrush, goodbye. And if this dries up, put the 2-part on, and in the morning when we come back, it'll be hard. Now, a couple of the do's and don'ts that I found. If you're doing a real part, for a test part I don't care, but what I wouldn't want to do right now is put it up by the heating vent, because the air coming through the heating vent sometimes has dust in it. The advantage here is what I'll do is, while I'm waiting for this to dry, I'll vacuum, and of course we have rugs in the whole shop, get as much dust out of here as I can, and I'd like to spray it just before I'm done for the day, so that it's sitting in a room where I'm not walking by and blowing dust on it, and it just minimizes the amount. Now, if you had a concrete floor in your shop, like I had in the old garage in Union Avenue, I'd wet the floor down. That gets rid of a lot of the dust too. And a lot of times the Imron planes, you know, you'd have a very minimum amount of buffing, but in this case, we are just waiting, and I know it's overkill, and I know Bob is probably laughing, ah ha ha, but you know what? Every once in a while, here's the thing. If you were to spray this fuselage, and then that 3-year-old paint is out of code and it didn't harden, I don't know, you know, do we blame Bob Brookins, do we blame Richard Oliver, or Obama, or who do we blame? Nancy Pelosi? I don't know. No, we blame me. But I'll do the test, I'll give it 2 hours, and that'll definitely bring me that at the end of this day, I've got plenty of other work to do here. at the end of this day, if that hardens up, and I hope these guys are gone outside. I don't want, they're blowing stuff all over the place now too, so I've got to wait till they're gone, or hopefully, maybe even if I have to wait till tomorrow, I don't care. Better safe than sorry. Well, it looks like we're lucky. That dried up nice. No problem at all with that. So we'll mix up a real batch now, and as soon as they're done out there, I guess. I don't know if they're gonna be done. They're still making a mess out there. What's this? As I'm out here, it's raining. Was it raining 1 minute ago? It's raining right now. Well, so much, it's raining. It was perfect a minute ago. Oh no, it's definitely raining. Time to postpone the operation. Well, that certainly was a save by the bell. Holy mackerel. The sun was out, not really out, but, well, I guess we're gonna wait. See, humidity doesn't hurt this two-part stuff, but one raindrop make a mess. Live to fight another day. Well, we had to wait till just before dark because of the rain and the contractors and the power washers and everything, but that's a coat of the Brookings stuff on there now. That's going to dry overnight, of course. We've got the heat shut off, so while it's sticky like this, it doesn't tend to pick up any dust or dirt, and minimize that if we can. And we'll see how that looks in the morning. But that little prop dried up nice. So I have no reason to think this isn't going to dry up just as nice. But of course, that's not always true. We'll see in the morning. Oh, this morning the sun is shining on the grackalones as they steal bread out of my feeder. What is he doing? And when I went out to get the paper this morning, I saw 2 robins, so spring is definitely coming. And they're still working on a grouting issue here. I'm not sure what the resolve of that is. I can't even think about it. They were working on it all day yesterday, but looks like it's a sunny day today. This sun is actually out on a very windy and very sunny. And we got plenty to do, that's for sure. Now this morning, even though it's cold, the humidity is under 40%, so we're not going to waste 1 minute of this time. I want to just very quickly run some sandpaper over the letters, just very slightly now, not a full sand out, and get what I hope will be the last coat of clear over them. And even if I skip the step of sanding it, well, it wouldn't really matter. The reason I'm going to do it though is there just still are a couple little rough spots, little edges and things, and I want to smooth them just a little bit before I put that last coat of clear on. But before I do that, what I'll do is I kept one part that I'm using for my test. This is the outer piece, so it won't matter how much we put on. And I'm going to go put a coat on right now just to make sure that we're in the good range of humidity. 40% is usually pretty good. It was under 40, it was 39% around breakfast time. So we'll get a test on this, and by the time this dries up, that half an hour, I'll be ready to spray the wing. Fuselage is drying up, and I think it dried up from yesterday's 2-part. That'll require, well, we'll let it sit there for 1 day before we work on it, and then see if it needs to be sanded out, buffed, both, or a second coat, and we most of all want to see what it's going to weigh. Now this is just for reference. This is the extra of the material I mixed. And this of course stayed in the bottom of that little container, and you can just squeeze it out. But this is the material. And what I was afraid of, and it has happened, is when I've used material that's that old, sometimes it doesn't harden, or it doesn't even go to this state. This is only drying about 12 hours now, so well, maybe a little more. But you can see that it's It's totally dry, and this will only get hotter as the day goes on. But that's what it looks like. That's what that two-part looks like when you empty out the container. Now we'll see if we can beat the contractors. They're supposed to come and do something today, but I don't know what. And because we've had such wild swings in temperature and humidity, I just always feel gun shy about just running out and painting something. Even though I check the weather every morning, of course, I always look more for the humidity than for the temperature. And it's always on, if nothing else, you can always get it off the Weather Channel on our TV anyway. I'm sure everybody has a Weather Channel. But it never hurts to be too cautious. While this is drying, I'll get me a cup of coffee. And this, whatever gram or so of extra weight goes out on the outer tip, there'll just be less lead out there. So this now we'll give this a good cup of coffee. I like to say a half an hour, but if this works out well, time to paint the wing before the wind really gets cranking. Oh, listen to those birds. And don't you drop any nesting materials on me here either. Not funny yesterday, but they were nesting right in my my painting zone here. Well, let's just hope. Usually right about now the wind comes up. Yeah, get a good candle on this right now. Oh, there comes the wind. I know it. How do I know that? I know you're making a nest up there, so don't drop anything. Don't be a baby. Make your nest. Oh, son of a gun. Nesting materials. Well, we'll see if we need one more. I don't care. No matter how early I get out here, the wind comes a half hour just before I'm ready to paint. Now, I'm not sure what the contractors, they're working with the grout. Well, they haven't gotten here yet, so at least I got my wing painted in the time we're waiting for them, but there's still this issue of, and I don't know what they're going to do here. They've got some kind of issue with the cement or the grout, something that they've been working on. They've been chipping away. I don't know what they're going to do. Power wash away. But we saw our first robin this morning, so, oh, and the wind is coming up. Boy, did I just duck a bullet. Wow. That was great. Good timing, Wendy. Good timing. Well, that's going to dry up. Hey, I hear somebody at the front door. Maybe it's our friends, the contractors. Who knows? Oh, this is drying up nice. Now, I know Richard Oliver has told me that you could buff this out, you know, like 2 hours after you do it or something. Well, I'm going to give it an extra day because I got a lot of other projects here around the shop to work on. And this certainly will benefit as well as the wing, no matter, even if I give it another coat. I'll see tomorrow or later today. But we didn't want to have too many things on a plate today because, again, the other day we had 100 interruptions with this grout issue with the pavers. We'll see what they're going to do. And I've got to work around a lot of things here. I've got to start making up tanks soon. We want to get some flights on that. Now, Mr. Jacobone's already been out flying with Mr. DeTavio. They beat me to the punch this year. Got to make up gear legs. Among other things, we got to start making up some spinners. We get the parts to make some more spinner parts. So as I take inventory here, I'm trying to prioritize what would be the best thing to do today. And of course, I go see, I just heard the mailman come to the door here. Okay, so our friend the mailman brought us, I was expecting this in a mail. I talked to John Brodak a few times about this project. This is going to be one of our projects that we're going to work on for John, and at the same time we're working on the project for John, we're going to write and document a Control Line World article for the magazine, showing a step-by-step of how we do this. And also what I suggested to John might be worth doing is we have all these demos at Brodak's on the evenings of, well, almost every night there's some kind of demo. Bob Brookins usually does a painting demo. Other people have done demos of control systems. Pete Klepsik's done them, and among other people. But anyway, here's what John has. This is a kit part, and see, it has, well, they really didn't do a job like I would do on this. This was pretty sloppy. I mean, at a minimum, I would have sanded that off with a belt sander or something. Plus, number two, this thing weighs about, they used stuff like you would make a boat. So what I decided to do with this, and then John is going to be working with me on this. See, I got to fill this all in up here. All this in here is, we're going to use this for a rough plug. John is going to send me some Aeropoxy light and some molding rubber, and we're going to fill this in. Number one, we're going to fill this all in, and of course get a real nice finish on it with Brodak primer. This is the plan anyway. Then we're going to make a rubber mold from which we can make as many cowls as we want. And I'm going to try to use lighter material in this. This really is heavy, by the way. This is like an ashtray. But the other choice we would have here, and I didn't know if we're ultimately, this is the pictures that John's working from, what John wants to have the option, or maybe he's already committed to using a Wankel engine, where none of this will stick out. So we want to have this perfectly round. That's number one. And all the finish, I thought this would be a good thing to show, like a primer on making your first cowling mold, which we made the B25 mold, the A26, the Tiger Cat. We made, I'm going to guess, 3 or 4 other molds for people for scale projects. This will be a good one. This will be one to, and it's a generic size too. I didn't even notice. Let me see what the generic size is. Now, the other choice would be
it's 4.3. 4.3. I'm wondering if my my B25 mold is 4.3. I have to check. It may be close enough. But either way, we'll do it as a little project. So I guess the next step is a trip up to the molding box up under the train layout and see if we got anything that's even close to this. Yeah, I didn't even think about that because I was thinking this is a different size. But our size may be even, you know, usable. We may not even have to make a mold, but even if we don't, this would be a good, well, it'd be a good little project. We'll see what John says, because of course this is one of the things we try to do is get people parts. If you just look at a weight, if this was a stunt ship, you'd never need nose weight. Just the weight alone. But not only that, but the quality, well, I don't know. You know, I really shouldn't criticize stuff, but because stunt flyers are always fanatical about the weight, where this is really going on a scale model, and John wants to make two of them, one for him and one for his brother. So what I need to do is spend an hour or so on the phone with him and see where he wants this project to go. Now here's the thing, when we did our B25 project, we made Tom Hampshire made a specific plug, and it was really nicely done. I may even still have the plug, I'll have to look. Save a lot of sanding anyway. But the nice part is now Bob Green is using our Spitfire Cal mold as we speak. And other people I know, by passing these molds around, it just makes a lot, and canopy molds that Midgley's made. I mean, everybody that's contributed something into this program, we just all have nicer models, more variety. But I got to look up under the train table. This will be the next part of this project. You know, the old model railroad is nice and quiet today, but we have to check. And boy, Mike Kajeski did what we call this is a cabinet. I've shown this before, of course, but just look at the amount of junk that's back here. But there are 2 or 3 tubs that are full of molds, so see what we got. There we are, kit parts. Molds. We don't make kits anymore. John makes them all, but we got plenty of spare parts for anybody who wants to build a Cardinal. Let's see what we got in there. Oh, we got some cowlings. We got some molds that are probably not in great shape by now. We got an extra cowl back here. Oh, I don't like that one. A couple more cowls. That one's nice and light. Let's see what we got. See, we may even be able to use one of these for a plug. See what else we got. Boy, we have enough molds back. And more cowlings down here. Yeah, we have molded a few parts in our illustrious career. Oh, there's another one. That one's nice and light too. Yeah, that one. And we got the original mold, but what happens, molding rubber dries out after a year or so, but it looks like we have enough parts here. Well, let's see. Take these down to the shop and see what we got. Looks like we got something to work with here anyway. Now, just to show you, John's cowl is 4.3. Our cowl is 4.5. It's 0.2 of an inch bigger. And we have the ones for the A26 that are a little smaller. They're within 1/10 on each side. And we have, now the good news for all this stuff is these are well within range. I'm going to have to call John right now and find out. Because see, this plug, to repair this plug and make it perfect, to give it the finish that you have here is a couple days of work. Where if we have a part, that mold is aluminum, or one of them is wood, one's aluminum. If we can use that size, wow, is that going to make this a simple project? They'll make it a lot easier anyway, but of course, because it's John's project, I don't want to, well, I'll give him a call, and we'll see how he wants to proceed with this. Okay, so after talking to John, I think I woke him up, in fact. John, you got to get up early, like me. Anyway, what I did, I wanted to show John this, because he'll see this DVD before he makes the decision.
I can mold with the cowl flaps on, I can mold with the cowl flaps off. Your part doesn't have the cowl flaps on. So, and you can make them thinner if you want to make them more or less scale. And what I did, I put ink instead of pie slices so these would be nice and strong. I inked them on, and I have the DVD on how to do that, so if we need to look at that, I can go back to it. And it's this diameter. If you take your part and put it in, we're talking about 2/10 of an inch. But it's 1/10 around, so it's actually like if you were planking the fuselage with 1/8 inch or 3/32 and use 1/16 inch thicker planking and then just sand it right in. That might be the answer. I don't know, but the answer is, what I'm going to do is, just to make sure, I will send this one, put them both in here, so you can see what they are. And we'll stick this in today's mail, of course. John will make a decision on this, and then this will be one of our, very soon we'll be working on that project for John. Now, because of all the construction work, our poor cellar stairs have taken a real beating. And so I did well, what I thought was a real productive thing. Took the scraper, wore out a couple of blades scraping the stairs, and tried to get the new finish on it. This new, by the way, this speckle finish where you put the little speckles in there, it makes even a rough old stairs look relatively new. I wanted to finish these up today because, again, we don't know what the schedule is with the contractors. We have to work around them, of course. And I wanted to give all that clear one extra day to dry before I got back and started doing the buffing on the wing and see how much sanding and buffing, and if there's a lot of dust in the clear on the fuselage. We still have 2 or 3 more days of buffing. But any day I can let it sit up by the heat vent and work on some other projects, I'll buy the time now, pay me now, or pay me later. Now, a couple of years ago, we had a different bird feeder, and a pair of birds had 4 fledgies in our feeder. And we got to see them every day. Well, yesterday we looked at the feeder, and they were making a nest in the outside part of this feeder with some kind of nesting material. He had a green stuff. It just appeared in there. So what I thought I'd be a good guy, I got the 2 little bird houses out. But then our fraidy cat birds, they're afraid to come to the feeder, so I don't know if they're going to like these. Maybe we're going to have to take them down. I thought maybe we'd make it easy for them. But they don't seem to like, they like having their feeder exactly how their feeder is. In fact, there's only one up in a tree. There he is, and he can't seem to decide if he wants to use this for a feeder. You big fraidy cats! It's unbelievable. But we did have 4. We actually got to see them fledge the day we got back from Cape May one year, and they flew away. Up. They don't like their new feeder at all. They'd rather eat off the ground. Oh, I think they're protesting to me here. Wendy, put the feeder back, you big baby. Put the feeder back. See, I'm not under a lot of political pressure from my constituents here. They made me remove the feeders. Oh, I thought they were going to be so happy making a little nest.
It wasn't a feeder, those were houses.
Those
are houses for them to build a nest.
My constituents voted no houses this year.
Right.
Don't you wish the government operated that way? Oh, look at that. They're back. Okay. Now I can go work on my plane today. I just don't want you guys to be hungry. See, you guys have to make nests and make me some fledgies this year. Oh, they're happy. They love Wendy
They're
now.
happy because they're cold. It's still cold.
It's below freezing out there. They love Wendy. Now, even though my birds have been very unhappy, this is the prop we painted with the 2-part, the Bob Brookins Keystone material. I gave it an extra day to dry. Normally, and again, Richard Oliver and other people have told me you can go within hours and buff it. Well, I always like to stack the deck in the other direction, say there's no way I can screw this up. But even given that, sometimes I have screwed it up. So what I did yesterday, or yeah, it was yesterday, I painted the stairs and did a couple other things that I needed to do just so I would maintain my patience. And I want to take a brand new piece of 1500. I wanted to show this because this is what we're going to do with the fuselage ultimately. And it has a relatively nice shine. Now don't get me wrong, that shine is nice, but it's still not a buffed out plastic shine. And as to a connoisseur, there's a distinct difference. If you go to a car show, you'll see cars that have this wet look, Imron, two-part kind of look. And then you'll see hand buffed out lacquer. And hand buffed out lacquer, to me, it's a taste thing. It's always like filet mignon then. So, before I sand out anything on the model, I always like to do a little test. Always safer if you, and I don't know why I keep harping on that, but this was old material. It was 3 years old. It was from '06. And if you get caught up in doing the test, you'll never be sorry. Now, just as an example of doing the test, this is unrelated, but the guys that did the grout, I think they used old grout because that grout is coming apart inside, and they're going to have to either re-grout it or re-something it. They didn't do a materials check, and that was the problem. And so with some material, you know, like Brodak dope, it's never bad. It's a predictable material, but two-part things have shelf lives and all kinds of other stuff. Now, you can see the little moon craters. Let me get this up close. Let's see right up here. Maybe you can see the moon craters. I want to show the moon craters. If you see the moon craters, no matter, there we go, right there. See, now this wasn't a perfectly smooth sanded prop, so the odds are good if we do sand that more, we might or might not go through, but we're going to sand it some more anyway. Because this material goes on relatively thick. The other thing we want to do is see how much weight we added to the fuselage. We'll do an accurate weight before we sand it and after we sand it and buff it. So we'll have actually two more times to weigh it. So just let me... Because a lot of people just like to paint props. Now one of the things I did, I got this same material. Last year I got some black from Bob Brookins and painted some props, and they came out beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Now Rich Walbridge is looking to make a show prop for his Spitfire, and I decided I would donate a spinner and a 5-blade to his project, but it'll be a show prop. So if he wants to put some of this Keystone stuff on a prop, boy, it'll shine. It'll be like a mirror, believe me. But anyway, we have used this on props before, and it does work good. Now, I still have a few. They're right on the trailing edge. Let me get them all out. Why am I fooling around here? Because once you have it, the point is like with anything else in life, once you have it and it's perfect, you've got it forever. And once it's wrong, the beautiful part is once it's wrong forever. Okay, now, let me get some borers. Now, Bob Brookins recommends that, what's the name of the stuff? I got some over there, some Finesse It. What I like to do with a prop is squeeze it, so I've got my hand on top and bottom at the same time. I can get a little more pressure on it than if I'm just pushing down on the blade. And I like to at least show some of this in real time because there's some things in life, and one of them is like when I see the furniture show where he's making furniture. Can't think of his name now, but the guy the New England guy that's making furniture, and he's doing a great job, and then the camera goes bang and it's done. Well, yeah, let's see, how did he do that, you know? I'd like to know how he set the saw blade up and things like that. All right. Now this gets me in a little bit of a a rhythm to do the fuselage, which is our first goal today, is to do the fuselage. And if it warms up out there, it's below freezing again. We had the other side of the house that we have to paint black, but I like to paint that later in the day when it warms up out there. Okay, here we go. And it's just a simple thing, Gorham's 1500 and Gorham's. Okay, now if I could, ooh my God, is that nice. Now if I could show that finish, and you've seen that in real time, I've not shut the camera off. Now this finish is actually pretty nice, but here's the difference. If you run your hand on this, you can feel the dust. And if the whole plane is like this, I don't know. But if the whole plane is like this, oh my God, does that feel nice. So I'm pretty confident we're going to be able to buff out the fuselage, 1500 sanded, buff it out, and it'll be, well, it should be just like that prop. Now this is that little trim tab that I have. This is the outer one that I've been using for a test. Now the reason for doing the two-part is not really super sensitive to how long it takes before you buff it out, and in this case, this will probably buff out today. But if I give the wing an extra day, and I will do some work on the house, giving it that extra day will save me a lot of time. Let me just see how we're doing with this. I was using this just to check humidity. Now it used to be that we'd always do 1200, but I'm convinced now 1500 is even better. A little bit extra work, maybe 10% extra work, but you know the thing is, if you're looking to save work, you could play golf or something. Then you don't have any work at all. Okay, so it flattens out. Let me just show it. I like to do it all in real time. It's flat as can be. No little moon craters. Nope, it's good. Okay, so this side. And there's something about, even about the feel of the parts. They just feel so nice. And I guess I've said this 100 times already, but that first time I remember. And what was funny is, in the old days, using that compound and 400, the paint didn't come right up either. You really had to suffer along. The paint, this paint, Brodak dope, just pops right up. It's ridiculous. But some of that old material, I don't know. But I'd buff, and what we do is just the top block up to the canopy and a leading edge, and say, that's buffed out. Forget about buffing the bottom, and forget the open bays. So you'd have a plane with a shiny leading edge and a top block. And I was one of the only ones back then that sat and buffed out the open bays. Even Harold Price was impressed. He said, wow, man, that takes a lot of work. And you'd always go through in a few spots. But you know, in the end, all of the people back in that time that had buffed out planes, Billy Simons and Ronnie Pavler and John DeTavio, and believe me, John DeTavio did have some beautiful airplanes. Oh boy, did he have some buffed out. He was a patient guy back then. I'm not sure he's not a patient guy now. He's an old patient guy. He's a wild hog. So anyway, this is the end of this, and then we can move on to the harder parts of this job. Now I'll just do the other side off camera. We'll be ready to buff. Everything's ready to buff here, but I'm going to give the dope parts one extra day. Anytime you can give the dope parts one extra day, and because we have this ongoing list of things we're doing on the house, at the same time we're trying to finish this plane. But it was 27 degrees this morning. The flying season looks like it's going to be a little elusive this year. You know, with our global warming has become global cooling or global freezing or something. Who knows what? Who knows if we're even... Yeah, who knows when we're going to get to fly the plane, but we're not going to rush it anyway. And when we do the assembly, and that's coming up very soon, the hinging, the assembly, I want to do it in a very detailed way so Rich Walbridge can maybe benefit from some of the things we learn on this plane as he finishes up his Spitfire. He's toward the end of that project right now doing the paint work and getting the final fits and things. Oh, but that, you just rub it on your cheek. Oh, it feels so nice.
Okay, with our clear, the two-part clear on the fuselage, we're at 357, and of course we'll just go deduct what the original was before we put the clear on, and then we'll take a final thing and see how many grams, if we can get a couple of grams of this off in buffing, and you won't get much off, but get a few grams off in sanding and buffing. Okay, so after I deduct the handle, 334 brings us just a little under Novanta, a couple of grams. We'll get 1 or 2 grams off it. Well, that's insignificant, but I know we're not as heavy as the Testarossa, and we're an ounce lighter than a Spitfire, so it looks like we're on track, and by keeping track of everything, I can see where the weight is. I can get some real good idea where the weight is on this. Now you can see before the clear, after the clear. So we got 10 grams. It's a little less than a half an ounce to have that automotive clear on the nose. And the good news is we have no joint at all. If we just painted the nose, we'd save 5 grams, say, but we'd have a joint here that would always keep coming out in the sun. The canopy is really going to look good in the sunlight, I think. So I'm going to have a cup of coffee and cut up some more sandpaper. I really need to cut up some more sandpaper. And my goal today would be to get this, or the biggest amount of it buffed out. And if time permits and weather permits, get that side of the house painted. And this will be a killer day. So now we have a very clear path in life. Sanding this out, and boy, it always pays. I just can't say it over and over enough. It always pays to have the patience to wait that extra day or so, and that's why we're going to do that with the wing, of course. Dope more than two-part really benefits from that extra day, even extra 2 days. And we are just, as we come down a home stretch here, you can imagine we're about as excited as you can get. Now I wanted to show this because a sleeve of sandpaper around here is about 68 bucks. So I try not to waste it, and I try to, before I get sanding or doing anything like this, I try to get me a little deck of cards all set to go. Because once I'm starting to sand this and concentrate on it, I don't want to go over and cut. I want to get my rhythm and get going. Now, as careful as we are in the shop, we always, because this be fly paper for about an hour, it picks up these little specks of dust, and this is why we sand and buff it out. If you had a dust-free environment, you may minimize that or get rid of most of it anyway. Some or most of it, but in our case, we have to deal with it. Now, it's always when you're coming down a home stretch when I am, I really get excited. I have to tell you, the cup of coffee tastes a lot different when you're coming down to do the last maybe week or two of work on a plane. I get excited anyway. Not as excited as my birds when I put birdhouses out there, but... And I hope they get this issue with the grout resolved. That's what they get paid for. And I've been trying to do some other maintenance work. The reason being that as soon as the weather actually breaks into the wild hog flying season, we really want to be ready to go. We want to have our barbecue hooked up so we get home from flying, we can have some lunch on the Barbie or something, sit out on the porch or whatever. But by doing this, that final little amount of dust and everything usually comes right out. It's usually very predictable. And of course, we don't want to sand so much that we go through and lose the protection of the two-part. We just really would like to have. Well, let me just show this. Here's a good example. Sanded this little piece out, and there's what it would look like as we go up there, and our little, we want the whole thing to be flat, our little corner that we missed. This is a little speck of dust. But as you work a finish like this,
Over here it builds up a little bit of a ridge. We'll just knock that down. But from this point on, it's just a predictable, oh, I'm guessing a couple hours of sanding and buffing and this will be done. And if it's not done today, see, we're trying to take advantage of the weather. It was 27 this morning, but it's supposed to go up to 40. And then anything above freezing I can paint outside. So we're bounced back and forth on these projects, and we'll have them both done by the time flying season gets here. Well, I have to admit, this sanded out relatively well. I'm coming down a home stretch here on the nose, and then we'll start buffing away. Buff-o-matic. And it looks like it's going to be a great day for painting that other side of the house. I'm almost sorry we don't have any more paint to do on this, but whenever we're at the end of the spraying for the year, Karen is always, she takes me out for pizza, as she will tonight. To celebrate yet another year, we've made it through all the issues we have with when we stink up the house with paint. We've tried to minimize it this year, but of course it's still something we have to deal with. Boy, but when you come down a home stretch, it really starts to get exciting. To me, anyway. I'm not sure why. You would think after all these years that it'd get kind of mundane and routine. It never does. So let's see how that is. That's blocking out. We got to do the nose section yet. We got a couple little things. Oh, one more side here. Now what I'm going to purposely do is not do anything in here. I'm going to go right up to the edge, because in here, I don't want to take a chance on breaking through the paint, and there'll be a little spot, because there's definitely going to be some fuel in here at some point in time. And the whole idea of this is the integrity of the nose, that everything is fuel proof, everything is solid. Oh boy, that's going to be nice. I can tell ahead of time. See, I just get so excited when I get down to this point. And the buffing, once you get to this point here, the buffing with the Gorhams is, for this piece, less couple hours the most. Now the next part of this, once we get the final weight on the fuselage after the buffing, then I want to do a comparison of the wing and tail and see where we stand on that. Again, I think we have a little more clear on the wing than on other planes, but well, we're going to find out. And if it dries the extra day, that'll give us a way more accurate reading. But there's always something about coming down a home stretch, like Seabiscuit. And what's really been a big help here is having these house projects has, on a day like today, I mean, after 4 or 5 hours of this, my arm is going to be tired. It's tired right now, what am I talking about? But the bottom line is, I know the work I have to do outside, I'll be using a whole different set of muscles, so even an old codger like me, I can get, try to split my time so I can get both of them done. Oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited. This is like the week before Brodax, where you start packing coolers and getting everything ready, and you're just looking forward to seeing all your friends that you haven't seen for a long time. So, I go through, once everything dries up, first you got to get this to dry. That's a spot we got to work on. I just want to show what I look for. Yeah, we're pretty good here. I took that little rubber thing, did it down in the ditch. And up here, of course, has to still be sanded. We got to do the whole other side, but It's coming out just about as good as I could ever expect. Now with all the sanding done, I need a rest. I need a nap. One of the things I found useful in the past, I'm going to go get a pair. I had old socks, and I always put them aside after they get holes in them and whatever. But socks have that fuzzy, the athletic socks that I tend to wear, especially in the summer, have this fuzzy bottom that works out real nice. It's almost not quite as good as a microfiber, but I like to have the combination of Bounty paper towels, microfibers, and perhaps a few socks for these last couple of buff out parts. And this is one where I'll give it a shot here and see if it's my lucky day. Now these old athletic socks, they have two sides. If you turn them inside out, this is a good trick, believe me. Learned this many years ago. The other side is way fuzzier, and it's like terry cloth, especially some of the really athletic type of socks. They're real nice inside. They have a mat like a microfiber does. Now on big parts, on little parts, I like to use the paper towels, of course. But on big parts like this, let me just show what one of the little tricks is. I try to keep the fuzzy side down as much as I can. And this is really one of the things. Get some Gorhams out of the tub. Now this is, for right now, this is just sanded out. Sanded 1500. Now, of course, when you're done, you can wash the socks and use them again next year. Or as the year goes by, in my case, I just put all the socks that I normally would, you know, be throwing in the garbage or whatever. Now what's cool is you can now take one of the microfibers and you've got a big giant chunk of this done in a very short amount of time. Now what I always do, if I'm not doing a big area like this, if it's smaller areas, I try to pick an area and do one area at a time. Not just try to just aimlessly do it, but pick a spot. And this, as an example, the next thing I do, I'll do this area here. Then move up, do this area here. Then do around the nose. But I'll do it in segments, not just in random orbits. Look at the reflection on that now. Oh. Here's what I want to see. This is one of the things I always try to do. Let's see if I can watch television in it. Look at this. I can watch television in the shine. So if you want it any shinier than that, I don't know. Now both products work equally well in my opinion. The Gorhams works well. Bob Brookins suggests Finesse It for the two-part. The Finesse It works well too. Both of those products work very, very good. But look at that shine. Put Addie, I have to tell you, if you could watch television in your paint job, I guess that's pretty special. Now what I found works, I've been just trying to experiment because I'm not really as familiar with two-part as I am with the other stuff, but what really works well, this is one of the things came out of this project. 1500 sanded, and this is, I just rough it out with Gorhams. The Gorhams is slightly rougher than the Finesse It, so it just works real quickly. But the Finesse It really puts that final shine on it nicely. So, in fact, this is what I like about people like Bob Brookins that share the technology. Now he's a professional painter, so he's not making one plane a year or something like I am.
And he can save, well, he's been mixing paint for me and doing favors for me and putting demos on at Brodax, and this is one of the things that he's really shared with us that's worked well. Now see, the Gorhams brings that shine up very quickly. You've got a shine on it. But now, this product, I get a paper towel. In fact, I'm gonna have to get some more when I go down to the body shop. We're running out of it. Ah, it explodes. Now I've noticed with the finesse it, you got to just keep rubbing away. It takes maybe a little more effort than the Gorhams, I don't know. But the combination of both of them is just absolutely deadly here. You can watch television in it. And I don't really think you can get it a lot shinier than that, to be honest. Now, if that isn't the best trick, if that doesn't float your boat, I don't know what would. That is, let's just see, for instance, you can see the, and this is it again, this, what's the part number? 05928. I definitely will get some more of that. And between the socks, the microfibers, and paper towels, within an hour or so we'll be outside painting. Hour and a half. And that whole fuselage will look like that because I'm stoked right now to finish it. I'm really excited. I want to watch TV in the whole fuselage. So the final test. After all that buffing and polishing, we've gotten off a half a gram. No, but it tells you that material, it's great material, but boy, I just, it would scare me how quickly you can put 10 ounces of that, 10 grams of that on a plane. So for me, even with an airbrush and even doing it as thin as I can, I've managed to put on 9.5 grams of total weight. So the final weight on the fuselage, we still have the lightest fuselage that we've had of all the take-apart planes. By only a gram or two, though. That doesn't matter. We're well within the range. So now, even if the wing is a little bit heavier, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. Our tail, including the hinges, buffed out, is 93. We'll record that weight, factor that into all our final decisions. That's certainly within the range that we're accustomed to having it. I've had lighter ones, but of course, this is going to be a short tail moment on plane. It's not an extended tail. What would be a problem if we had, like Richard Oliver has an extended tail, and then you have a heavy tail, then it's a problem. This will not be. I'm just guessing. My gut feeling is we're going to be right on the money here. We will not have a problem at all with that. 93, buffed out, and with the hinges. The tail on the Testarossa was 87. It was lighter. And on the Novanta, it was heavier. It was 106. So I'm pretty much right in the middle of where I was, which would be fine. Both of these planes balanced very closely. I've got to look here just to see. And it doesn't, this is an irrelevant thing, but I always like to have this information available. No matter what I have, if I have the information at some future time, I know where I stand. And I know it every step of the way. That's what I was looking for. But now I know, even in the final analysis, I'll know, when I'm done with this database, I'll know what the last 4 planes that I built were and what all the component parts weighed, buffed out, and ready to assemble. I thought I'd look at this out in the sun, see if I can see my reflection in it. Okay, I can see the grill. See how the canopy looks out in the bright sunlight? Boy, my arm is tired. This was a lot of work. You know what? It's good tired, though.
Because when I think of how this will look as it comes around, the light is beating right off of it. Look at the sun reflecting off of the parts. The canopy has a very nice, very subtle look of silver right at the top. Dark around the edges. Little sparkly thing going on there. The scoop came out nice, I think. This is certainly making my day complete here. And I think back to when this was just a drawing, just a sketch. Seems like it was 100 years ago, but it really wasn't. That gets me started on. Here's what I think is. I have to paint the side of the house over there to match the side that we have here. And I was waiting for the sun to get over there, which I think I can catch it. It's going to take me about 2 hours to paint that. And if I have enough time, I wanted to paint the Bilco doors. And this side of the house here is in pretty rough shape. So, yeah, definitely cannot do any more buffing today. My arm is in, I've pitched a double header here. I really think it's making me happy just looking at it here before I have my lunch.
Okay, Wendy, it's time to paint the side of the house. We're going to be busy making fledgies while you're painting, so get painting. We don't want to live in a neighborhood where the foundations are all ratty. We want to live in an upscale, upbird neighborhood. This is the guy with the stripe on his head. He will not come to the feeder. He eats off the ground. As I say it, he runs to the ground, the big baby. Where'd he go?
Now, the good news is while we're doing this maintenance work we need to do on the house, we'll give that wing, that's our final part to buff, and if it comes out as good as the fuselage, I'll be just thrilled to death. I'll just be as happy as a Spitfire can be. But this is the normal maintenance you have on an old house. Every year we have a couple of weekends of this kind of stuff to do. And the paint on our new stairs. Even little things like this, the maintenance. There's just an endless supply of maintenance on this house. And it just never ends. First step is going to be to wire brush all this off. Oh man, is it's going to be. And it'll match the other side, hopefully, when we're done. Just never ends. Never ever ends. These kind of things always start off the easy way. You look at the job and you say, that's not a big deal. Then there's the hard part. Or as Richard Oliver says, you did the easy part, the talking, now the hard part. You got to do it. And he's right. Well, the wire brushing's done, and it looks like the paint's going to go on, you know, not like painting a model plane.
To heal hearts and save lives. Technology that can help us find and treat heart disease before it.
Now it's funny, Karen comes out here and she says, why are you painting when it's so cold out? And tomorrow it's going to be 40 degrees. Well, you know what? The idea here is to get ahead one day, so on a 40-degree day, maybe we can go wild hog it up or something. Go see Jackabone's refinished plane or something. Or do something. Trying to get one day ahead, and I definitely want to have, there's no chance I want to have that that wing not have an extra day. It'll just make that a lot easier for me. And getting all these jobs done. Oh, there she is. Am I ready yet? It'll be 40 degrees tomorrow. Yeah, warmer. Warm days are coming, baby. Okay. No, I don't need you. Check in a half an hour. See if I'm frozen to death out here. If I'm not, throw me a cup of coffee. But every day, I just look at it this way. This is every day that I get this, I'm ahead. And usually by the time the flying season gets here,
or actually the motorcycle season, to be honest, both. What happens is then I'm cruising. We really would like to have that this year too. And just knowing how nice that fuselage came out, and that it's light with the 2-part on it. We shouldn't have any fuel stain issues. I think it's just going to be a great summer. I'm as excited as I've ever been. And that's why I'm willing to sit out here in 30-degree freezing. It's not funny, Chickie. By the way, that little seat from Harbor Freight comes in so handy on a million things. Well, at least now it's semi-matches, even though I haven't gone all around the back yet. Now I gotta move some rocks. I gotta do some stuff over here. Do some more wire brushing. This is probably gonna be 2 or 3 more hours. It doesn't matter though. I'll get this done today if I don't run out of paint. And I'll feel like a king. The king of Rutherford. Or the slave of Rutherford, I don't know. Karen is very impressed that I finished this. In fact, she said, as long as you got the black paint out, why don't you do the stairs in the front too? Well, you know what? Maybe she's right. I even got this piece done, which is going to have lattice. We're going to remake that piece and put lattice there. Because that door swings and we get underneath to do our wiring and other things, the gas line to the stove. We have the gas line is under there, but boy, this was a major thing to get this done today. And the only thing, if I can get the stairs done today, wow. Even I'll be impressed. All right, Karen, I'll put the pusher on. I'll put the pusher on just for you, baby. I know she appreciates, well, I appreciate what she does around the house too, but boy, I'll tell you, we still got to put the last shutter in. We still got to paint inside. I'm thinking we got about 2 more weekends of work here. But getting these stairs painted, this will be a big help. Especially it'll be a lot easier now. I'm just thinking about it. She's right. It'll be a lot easier before they plant. They're going to be planting stuff in here. We can get 1 step ahead. Now that I got all the black done here, you know what's going to happen? Tomorrow it's going to be beautiful outside. I can just feel it coming. But the stairs are painted. Karen's got some ornamentation that's going to go on there eventually. But for right now, oh, I just hope it's warmer tomorrow. This was a long, cold day. That's a good sense of accomplishment. It'll be nice working inside tomorrow. Now this morning we got our package. I think there's paint in here. We want paint. We actually need some for the wheel pants and for some props, and we want to make up a couple of handles in this color yellow. And as always, Bob Brookins delivers. So this will give us, this is the color yellow. You get the tag on it. Anyway, this is going to be more to yellow. Now the reason we wanted to have this, I wanted to make sure I don't get to the middle of the summer. In fact, as we speak, Bob is at VSC, or he's on his way to VSC or something. But I wanted to always have a little bit of touch-up paint, never get down to the nitty-gritty, the bottom of the barrel on the paint, that's for sure. And Bob, as always, Bob Brookins comes through. And we really do love this color yellow. Now also, this is the stuff I think John is sending me for the cowling mold. At least that's what I was expecting. And as soon as we get the molding rubber, we can start on that. Now what I did, I mailed him out one of my B25 cowls so he could see if that was going to be appropriate and a good choice. And if it is, then we're going to make the mold from his. Yeah, he's got enough cloth in here. We need some air epoxy. We need that.
some primer. And this'll definitely be enough to, well, see, we didn't know if we're going to use the wood part. I'd need this for the wood. Don't know if we're going to need this just in case John decides he wants to use the smaller of the two. In which case, if he uses the smaller of the two plugs, we're going to have Tom Hampshire just turn that down ever so slightly. But this is basically all you need to make a cowl mold, except, of course, for the plug itself. So we got that all squared away this morning. I was thinking, looked up at the clear, it's drying up beautifully, and I was thinking, you know, Mike Kajeski called me this morning. He wanted to take a quick ride on his motorcycle, and I said, yeah, well, you know, this would be a good day. So it's warmed up to about 40 degrees out there. We're basically gonna let that sit another day, and believe me when I tell you, every day that it sits, it'll make buffing it out that much easier. And as soon as we get the rubber, we'll start laying out the mold and writing up the article for Control Line World. So what we're going to do, we're going to postpone doing our lattice job here for a day. Give that a day to just dry up. And actually, you hear the birds. Spring is in the air. It's going to probably go up to 40 degrees today. And it'll be a nice ride, just to get out of the house for a little while. We are really housebound. I'm not sure what our contractors are going to be doing about cleaning up the grout issue here. That's their problem. We're going to be setting up the pond filter probably in the next couple of weeks. I see we already have the beginning of an algae bloom out there, so we're going to have to get us a new UV light. We got a list a mile long of things to do, and our birds are already, I know they're already fledging. They're taking nesting materials and dropping it when I was painting the other day, so a lot of little action coming up in the next week or so. And most of all, we'll give that wing one more day, and when that's buffed out, we'll be ready to start assembling the plane. Sometimes when I think about this job from the day we started, and from the day we even started the porch project, all this construction work, it's all starting to come to where we can start enjoying it. Probably within a month we'll be cooking out on a barbecue here every day. But for today, as soon as Mike gets here, I'm sure Mike has the same idea I have. Let's go burn some tires up. Burn some fuel, do something. Too windy for a flying day. Now our guys are making nests up here. They think they have me fooled, but I'm not fooled one bit. It's going to be fledgy time very, very soon. Very soon. It's amazing when spring comes in this part of the country. It's just absolutely beautiful. You hate to even be in a house. And I'm sure even one extra day just makes it that much easier. Boy, look how nice this fuselage came out. That really makes me happy. Boy, oh boy. Now, if we can get the wing to buff up, and of course we can, it'll just be a question of maybe 2 days of buffing. One on the top, one on the bottom. And I'm already looking forward to seeing this assembled. And most of all, I haven't even seen it in one piece yet, where we could do a little bit of a photo shoot, share some photos with our friends. But it's all coming. I love the way the canopy came out. This has just been a great adventure in every way. Between the house, the weather, and this plane, we've had a great adventure. Well, that was one total pain in the neck of a job, because it had to fit, and that door swings in and out. What are these birds laughing at me for? Just because I'm not a carpenter. That's one more job done. One more job. Every time I get one of these done, I go over, check it off my list. I am just thrilled every time I can do that. And that's one more. Now, as I finish this up, I got today's mail. This is interesting. Some stuff from Bob Green, who, of course, is building a Spitfire, and he's using some of our molds and working with Rich Walbridge. And he said this is S-glass. It's not E-glass. I'm going to have to call him and find out what this is. This looks like a mat that might be useful for something. It almost looks like carbon mat, but he says it's S-glass, and I'm not familiar with the product. And this, of course, looks like maybe a 2 ounce, maybe 3 ounce. I'm not sure. But anyway, we're coming up on a point in time of doing John Brodak's cowlings. We may be able to experiment with that. But again, this is what I like about sharing. We're sharing our molds. He's sharing his technology. And Rich Walbridge is sharing the molds and the parts. And between us all, I hope the ultimate thing is that there's going to be more Spitfires. There's never too many Spitfires. Bob, thank you very much. And we'll see how we can use this. I'm going to have to give you a call. So there I was looking at my email. Bob Green was going to send me some stuff about this S-glass, and to my chagrin, my computer can't access the files that he sent, so we're going to have to wait. I don't know if he can simplify them. He sent them in a format that probably more computer literate people would have no problem with, but well, anyway. Mike Kajeski was going to stop by with his motorcycle today again, but just to break my heart because well, to be honest, Karen says the railing must be painted black. And I thought, yeah, before they start planting out there, it might be a good idea if I get off my duff here and get the railing painted today. Now, here's what's funny. We spoke to Kent Tyser the other night, and Shelley, of course, hopefully is getting better. She's had some back issues, and Karen has had some minor issues, too. I've had some issues. I guess when you look at this picture, we're all having issues. We're all just getting old. But anyway, it's time every year this time. Kent usually makes me up a set of new lines. I don't like to use old lines on a new plane. And he's in the process of doing that right now. And I'm thinking we're a week, maybe 2 weeks away from being ready to fly the model. So Tyser, you got 2 weeks. And Jacobone called. He is ready to fly maybe this week coming up. Today it's an okay day in every way except the wind is already blowing and it's early in the day, so we're going to postpone that maybe till later in a week and dedicate this day to getting this railing painted, the railing in the front of the house. It's going to be a big job too. Well, there's just something about starting off a day checking out that fuselage. Boy, that fuselage came out nice. Holy mackerel, I can't believe it. I know I got to do the wing, but you know what? The priority in my life, even more important than the plane, is making Karen happy, and she wants to get that porch. See, we already got furniture out there, and she wants to pick out a table and everything, and once the furniture's out there, we'll know more like how we're going to use it. We're going to go shopping for furniture this week, I think. But even if it takes a couple extra days, we'll just let it sit up by the heating vent. That paint will be, every day that goes by, it'll be easier and easier to buff out. Now this I found to be really good stuff for filling nail holes. This is just a great product to just have around. It also comes the color we're going to use, except we bought this to do the white, all the little white nail holes, and I guess on the railing, since we're painting it black, it won't even matter. But this is a good thing if you're doing any work around your house and you want to fill little nail holes, because of course, well, there's no way you can build this kind of a structure and not have nail holes at the end of it unless you know something I don't know. But we're going to take care of that. We're getting ready. Let's suit up, get our cold weather outfit on, and get out there and get started. Now, the way Karen actually designed this job, and she did it on a computer with, well, with this program the landscapers have. She looked at it with the railing white, the railing black. She's in favor of a black railing. And of course, we're going to make her happy, and at some point in time, maybe today, we're going to paint these little swirls around here. Got to get up on a ladder to do that, and that'll be a lot of work too. But anything we do with this house, and when they finish with the landscaping and whatever the resolve is on those pavers, boy, not happy about that at all. As every day that goes by, that grout starts leaking out, and we have a feeling what really happened is they did it on a day that the grout froze before it set, and that's what's causing the problem. But again, that's what they get paid to do. And the first thing we have to do, get out our little spackle knife. Each one of these holes has to be filled with this special stuff. And we've got a little bit of work to try to get them nice and even. Then they're going to have to be hit with some sandpaper. And there's probably 1,000 of them. But we've done this before, this is good material. Anywhere there's a nail hole, we got to fill it in. Now talk about a labor of love, boy. Getting in all these edges and angles. This could make you crazy. And there's 1,000 edges. Victoriana. Anything Victorian. Every edge has to be done by hand. Every edge. Yes, it just couldn't be more fun than this. Victorian paintwork, corners, edges, small brushes. Hey, Chris. You want to see something funny? Check this out. It's our friend Goofy the cat. Look at Goofy following Chris. This cat is unbelievable. He follows him all around. That's Goofy. So look how different it looks when it's white. Karen is right. Karen's always right. It's a problem. Look at the steam coming off of that coffee, baby. Oh, that'll speed me up a lot. Actually, it's coming out pretty good. I'm at least half done. And then we want to, if we can, get some of these posts done today. See, we have to paint these rings. Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to get a ladder. Why am I fooling around? I'm thinking I'm going to reach that height. I don't think so. If you have a Victorian home, like an old car, an old airplane, an old motorcycle, hell, like anything old. It redefines the definition of labor of love. Now, don't you think, I was thinking of this, of course I gotta get my little ladder here. Don't you think the definition of insanity would be to be painting a house with a 1/4-inch brush? By hand. That is definitely the definition of insanity.
CBS FM 101.1 Sunday afternoon at Ron Parker. Maybe you took in a movie this weekend. We got it right here. The top box office movies. #1, new this week.
But Karen loves this stuff. Actually, I like it too. I don't know what I'm crying about. And when you got to do the other side on the ladder, of course, that's even more fun.
A year ago, the #1 flick was Dr. Seuss.
Whoa, this is so much fun. Actually, I'm trying to put a little bit of the push on and get this done today if possible. Because we're supposed to have some rain tomorrow. I won't be able to do any painting. But then I could do the rest of that buffing. All this time management. Wow. I should be running Wall Street. Maybe I could teach them how to make some money. You think they're losing money now? Wait till I take over. Now, the trouble is with this, you can only do so much, of course, and then you got to move the ladder. All right, what do you say, baby? You like it? I don't know yet. You don't know yet. I spent a whole day painting up here with the only house in town painted with a 1/4-inch brush. Looks good? Yeah, well, we got to do the shutters yet. But I think that's something. I'm glad I got that out of the way. And as a bonus, my clear got to dry 1 extra day. And of all our projects that's been lingering Oh my God, that's over. Actually, we're done with the black, except maybe if Karen decides she wants the garage door painted. I hope she doesn't. I'm not going to say anything. Anyway, our clear is drying up. We're going to come back here in the morning. And when it's clear, we'll be ready to buff. And probably in the next day or two, we're going to have that done. Oh, what a milestone that'll be. Okay, this morning we cut up enough of this 1500 to do the wing. Now what I'm looking for here is, I just want to do a little test before I even get started on this. I want to take, and the way I do this, I do one letter at a time, roughly. I want to see how quickly it's going to block sand down. Because what I have this morning is I have the morning up until lunchtime to work on this. And I'd like to get, well, at least one and maybe two panels done, depending on how many times the phone rings. Now, I purposely saved this piece for last. I wanted it to have the most dry time because actually it's the biggest and most labor-intensive piece to work on. Now, in the past, when I've tried to do, I'd set myself up for a fall. I'd say, oh, I'll do that tomorrow, and then try to get maybe halfway through it, realize my arm was getting tired, and it almost guaranteed that I wasn't going to get it done. Well, now I'm matured a little bit to the point where I know it's better to break these jobs up, and it's better to save the biggest one to last, because as I hope you'll see in about a minute or two, when the dope is dry a couple extra days, and I say it all the time, it gets harder and harder, easier and easier to sand. Just makes our job a little bit easier. And in fact, because I probably won't get to do the top today, in fact I definitely won't, based on our limited time, what happens is the top will be the hardest. It'll just let the buff out go as conveniently as possible. Now also this afternoon I have to go for, and this just worked out perfectly, I have to go for a bunch of errands that Karen has set up. And one of them is we're going to be in the town where Chard, the body shop supply place, is. Oh my God, it turned out beautiful. Now that's really amazing. Let me just show this. And we've gone from, you can see the texture in just a matter of a very short amount of time. So that's and it even feels nice. That's telling me we're going to have some real good luck here today. Now, and I can remember many times being so excited. Spring is in the air, and you just want to rush through everything. Well, I'm so glad that one of the things this winter gave us was, because it was an exceptionally cold and icy winter, we never were under the pressure to make this stuff happen overnight, and we really took our time in a lot of areas that I think they're going to start paying off now once we start getting the buffing. And I'll stop at Chard and I'll get another, I guess it's a quart of that Finescent material. That stuff absolutely works great. In conjunction with Gorham's, it's made doing this just a snap. And that, you can see how flat it's. When you know it's flat and there's no little shiny spots, you're ready for buffing. Now see, even though it's flat here, out here you can see the texture. Well, we want the whole thing to look like this. So what I do is, as I get a little bit done, I wipe it down to see where the shiny spots are. Now I can see I've got a spot here, as an example, a spot here. Breaking up the wingtip like this will just take time. But then from this point on, I'll just try to do one. I like to use a playing card size amount, and then of course work my way across the leading edge. I make like a jigsaw puzzle out of it, and then the last thing is the one side of the fuselage, and see if we have to touch up the fillets at all. Well, we're going to see when we get out there. But right now that looks like that's going to sand out, and it's that extra dry time that really works in your favor. Now, as I'm working this out,
And again, I just wanted to show this. This is the method that I use because I have seen people, and Mike Kajeski happens to be one of them, who just took a big rag and started doing this to the whole wing, and he got disgusted. He said, this isn't coming up. Well, to emphasize again that step one is it's got to be sanded flat. If you don't have it sanded totally flat, if you're trying to buff this, it's going to be you'll get it, but it'll be hours and hours instead of what I try to show people is that the sanding, if you don't have it, you've got to get it prepped like this to where it's flat and smooth. And then the buffing, when people say they buffed out a plane, it took 100 hours. Well, it's because they tried to buff this instead of buffing this. The prep that goes into it is so important. And I'd say like here you have maybe half an hour or so. And I don't know how many hours we're going to get into this. But even if I only get one panel done here, I'd rather be one panel done and know it's going to be easy to do the buffing than have it all sanded out. And knowing that I'm not saving anything. So the whole objective of the video is to show how to make it as easy as it possibly can be. Now it's hard enough to do it this way. You don't have to make it any harder. It's hard enough to do it this way and labor intensive. But again, the final result is when you go over and look at how that fuselage is sitting over there glowing and shining, you just wonder, hey, who cares? At least that's, that's the way I feel, is anything worth having, there's going to be some effort. There's going to be some, some anything in it. And as Karen always reminds me, if it was easy, the whole world would be living in beautiful old restored Victorian houses, driving a Ferrari, having a Ducati, or whatever. It's just a little effort. And it's that, in my case, it's a challenge to me to try to fit this into my life, because there's a lot of other things going on in my life right now. And to knuckle down, get down here, get a session in. And as Chicky so famously said, and don't be a baby, Wendy, tough it out. So we're just going to go one letter at a time until we get, well, at the rate we're going now, it's going as fast as I could expect it to be, but I'm thinking it might be smart to just sand the whole thing before I even start buffing. We'll find out. I come back to this every half an hour or so, and it's a thing when you're doing this. Hey, I just sit here. In my case, I'm up here watching videos and watching RC guys crash and put on some old music, some oldies or something, and the time goes fast. Now this is one of the tricky areas of the plane. We're up to where we have to do the fillet. Another thing that maybe I forgot to mention with 1500 that I found works well is if I'm sanding in one direction only, it seems like the paper clogs up, and maybe I'm wrong, it's just my imagination, but it seems like if I can vary the same way you paint candy apple paint, straight up and down, side to side, and then maybe in some circles, you kind of extend the life of that when you first take a new piece of sandpaper, the cut is phenomenal. And if money's no object, just use one piece of sandpaper like this for each bay and skip it. But I try to get a little bit extra out of each piece. Amazing, that's one thing that's amazing, is the price of sandpaper around here too. Maybe it's all over, maybe it's in California too. But now, once I know I have this blocked down, what I want to do is work my way up onto the fillet, and it's impossible to do that just with your bare hand. That's just not going to happen. You're wasting your time if you think, unless you have little pointy fingers like E.T. or something, I don't know. But this is the tool that's worked well for me now. Just being able to get up in there is such a big advantage. And it allows me to get a little bit of maybe 1/8 of an inch of the fuselage sanded. And we've been nailing these fillets down every step of the way. It looks like we've got them pretty nice. Again, we'll see after they're buffed out. You really can't see much when they're dull like this. They really have to be buffed out.
Now the other thing, once you got that, switch to the other corner of the sandpaper. So this way you're using parts of the sandpaper that when you sand by hand you don't really use as aggressively. You usually don't use that point of the sandpaper. Now the other thing is we're going to start assembling the model very soon. We're going to spend a lot of time because I want to try to use this as a way of passing some of the information on to Rich Wallbridge for the final fits. And once we're done with that, of course, get the final weights, and then we want to set it up for two different powertrains, a 76 and a 61. Oh yeah, that's coming out nice. See, but now I've used each corner, now I can use the sandpaper this way, because I'm only cutting on that very edge. So with one piece of sandpaper, you get a lot of sand for the buck, a bang for the buck, or a buck for the buck, or duck a buck, or Aflac or something. I'm not sure. Anyway, working in these fillets. This is one of the little details that in the final plane, when you look at it, your eye will just go right down that fillet. Okay, one panel done. We'll get this side of the fuselage all sanded out, this side, and I'm going to start. I may get both of these done in one session here. But again, if the phone starts ringing, I'm not going to worry about it. I just try to always give myself a goal that's just a little bit higher than what I think I can do. In this case, this is kind of just sand-o-matic. And I've got it all pretty well blocked down. Then we're just going to... There's no substitute for just toughing it out, chickie. And while I'm sanding this out, I figure I'd take a little rest and do some email. Got some pictures of Bob Green's Air Force. It's pretty funny. He says, "This is what you saved me from." Well, Bob, you got to save yourself, that's for sure. And I have a distinct feeling you're on the road to Spitfireville instead of Twisterville. But you know, my opinion is there's nothing wrong with having an Air Force with some of everything in it. If you have the time to have some combat jobs and some ringmasters and some twisters and whatever, right? But it's really nice to have a couple of Spitfires too, and we're looking forward to seeing when you get to that point. Both Rich Wallbridge and Bob Green, they can have their West Coast Spitfire Air Force. Anyway, thanks for sharing the pictures, Bob. Okay, I'm all rested up. I don't know how much energy I got left though. And I got started on the top. The whole bottom is done. Oh, that was a long session. And I'm going to try, I think at the best, I'll get a little bit of the top done, or whatever it is, because we have errands to do this afternoon. And I promised Karen I'd take her out to lunch. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely.
Money is no object. Lunch is no object. We'll go to Andrea's. Three down, one panel to go. And Karen is very happy that I'm going to take a break. Actually, I want to go get some more of that Finesse It while we're out on our errands, because I'm going to use it on this, of course. Somewhere I'm going to use it. One more panel to go. It's hard to believe. Hard to believe. This was a pretty aggressive morning. Now, boy, talk about sticker shock. I get my stuff. I get a brand new thing of Finesse It. The last time I bought this, it was $24. It's $36 now. $36.95. The American way. Anyway, I got the rest of the stuff I'm going to need for my project out by the stained glass window, which we're not going to start today. There's going to be a lot of other stuff that has to get on with it, but this is what I needed to finish up. And I'm not going to have the time. It's way too late already. It's after 5 o'clock. But having the material in house, now what I'll plan to do is tomorrow, get that one last panel buff, sand it out, try to get some or all of it buffed,
And we'll be ready for, we're coming up on that, what I really think is exciting, the assembly day or days. That's really when it gets exciting. But can you imagine $36.95? Unbelievable. Now I'm too tired tonight to start buffing, but I do have one little project. I needed to cut some molding around that stained glass window. There's a problem that's so dilapidated we can't even caulk it anymore. So I bought some of this molding, and I'm going to make what amounts to be a picture frame and try to get a coat of paint on it and let it dry overnight and finish this tomorrow. But see, here's the other thing. There's only so much buffing you can do in sanding in one day, at least for an old fart like me, and then you're not doing quality work. You just, it's not like digging a hole with a shovel. You've got to be passionate about it. Now that's the edge of our window project. Professionally framed. We'll see how that fits in tomorrow, and we'll get that other wing done. But right now, it's been a long day, and it's been a good day. And what I'm trying to show is that it's better if you get two different things done than try to push it all through on one day, because when you do, usually you either get very tired or you lose some of the quality. We don't want to do either one of those. We'll come back fresh and Javaliized up tomorrow morning. Now, is there anything more exciting than after a hard day's work to be watching Dancing with the Stars?
Especially now that you dance.
Bad enough I have to go for dancing lessons. Now I have to watch Dancing with the Stars instead of the Speed Channel. I'm missing the road races from Amola tonight.
Just don't.
Oh,
It's going to help you succeed.
oh, it's unbelievable. The pain and agony. Oh, so oh, 7. Oh, Windy wins. Look at this. Oh my God. Oh, it's just hard to believe. Windy and Karen. Vote for Windy and Karen. When is that? We don't go to Wednesday to our dance class, do we? God, am I a good husband. It's unbelievable. What I tolerate in the name of love.
How much fun do you have?
I could be watching the motorcycle races now. I could put this on a flip. Oh, the races are on tonight too. Windy, get down there and buff the rest of that wing and stop being a baby. I could hear Chicky talking now. Stop being a baby. Drink your coffee and go get that wing buffed. Oh, these birds every morning. The first thing this morning before I get back to buffing, these are these little decorative things that Karen got for the front stairs. I put a coat on last night after Dancing with Stars. But my life's a living hell. Dancing lessons and Dancing with the Stars. All part of me trying to scam up that Good Husband of the Year award. We're going to find out. We'll find out if I get it. But anyway, I got to get 2 coats on all of these parts. These will dry and then I'm ready to buff. Now this would have been a perfect part if I realized what this part was going to look like. It's made out of casting resin. We could have bought one, made a rubber mold, and I have plenty of casting resin. But you know what? They were a little on the pricey side, but Karen really liked them, and I'm sure they're going to look good when we get them installed. Okay, now with all our little peripheral things out of the way, oh boy, that feels nice. When you get down the home stretch like this, it just feels, the feel is so nice. Even if it didn't look any nicer, the feel is nicer. One more panel to go. Well, there's something about the home stretch of any build, or actually any house restoration, any car, any aircraft restoration, anything where you put your heart and soul in it, and we are coming down. Now my goal today is, and we got a couple little house projects for the afternoon, but the first thing is to get a nice early start on this wing, get the last panel sand it out, maybe some of it buffed. But again, no compromise on trying to rush through this or anything. And I've learned one thing about where these tips are. You've got to be real careful sanding them out, because it's just one of the things you could break through the edge very easily. So I'm being very careful, even though I put a little bit extra clear there. Working these, it's an unusual tip shape with the point. Normally you would have all radiused edges out there instead of points, but not our model, that's for sure. Now, little by little, this is really coming down the home stretch, as I say so fondly. And I can still see there's still some shiny spots there, but then I'll go right across this, one bay at a time, and then I'll celebrate with some extra coffee when this is done. This will be another milestone, and we are coming down the home stretch. I'm going to move these lead outs. Actually, these tips are very awkward to get into that point, but to make a little bit different than the typical stunner that, well, I'm not sure. All right, one more down. Now, because I have a lot of extra clear over the stripes, I can get them perfectly flat. You really, when you're done, when I'm done with this sand out, the parts that I'm done with, I could run my hand right over and have no indication, if you close your eyes, where that stripe begins and ends, which is a nice little feature if if that appeals to you, one of the features. But some people don't seem to care. Some people care. I care, and of course, for me, that's all that matters. And I always tell everybody, do what makes you happy. Don't do what somebody else what Obama tells you to do, or anybody. Well, President Nixon especially. Anyway, we are, and boy, I appreciate it more than you can ever imagine, coming down the home stretch. It is a time we've waited probably 6 months for. Of what's going to happen in the next week or so is the adding one more new ship to our Air Force. And it really is, it's like the birth of a new child, I guess. And this buffing part, without this, it just wouldn't be the same. One of my sayings always is that the whole reason for building these planes is because they're so beautiful. And I'm not so sure that there's much of a counterpoint to that. Of course there is, but not for me. Oh yeah, that's blocking right out. You run your hand over that stripe now, or over the letters, can't feel it at all. That is really coming out nice. Now every once in a while, even I catch a break. This is the end of the sanding of the Tribute model. We are done. This bay is the last bay. And every once in a while, even I catch a break. A blind squirrel finds a peanut or whatever, who knows what. Here's what happened is, since we're doing this construction job, there's always been one set of shutters that didn't come in with the original order, and they were out of stock, and we waited about 2 or 3 months Well, we got the shutters a couple of, well, maybe even a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember, but the contractor, Lee Costa, hasn't had time to hang them because they require some fancy cutting around one of the posts. Well, he just called and he's on his way. So, I mean, it just couldn't be better timing. We're at the end of the sand out, and I want to work with him and get that shutter up today. It's a reasonable good day anyway. And tonight, I'll be able to come back here because Karen has one of her art classes tonight, one of her painting classes. So, I think we're going to cut our losses here. That sand out is done. Now, I always walk around and try to find any little spot that isn't just right. No matter where I look, I'm looking and I'm not seeing anything that I'm not happy with. And we got the material yesterday for the doing the buff out. The buff out really will be a joy because that'll be the end of the buffing when this wing is done. Now, of course, the biggest thing, once the buffing is done, get some final weights on this, and then we're going to be starting the assembly. And I think the final fits, I think that's something several people will that are building take-apart planes among my circle of intimate close friends here. No, I don't see anything on this that would lead me to believe this is not going to buff out, and tonight we'll buff it out. We're going to get back here and see, one of the nice things, even though I put up with the Dancing with the Stars, when Karen has these classes at night, it almost gives me a whole nother day or a whole nother session. But anyway, we're at the end of this DVD. I hope you've gotten some information. Something you can use to buff your plane out a little easier or more pleasantly or more fun or something or whatever. But the the best part is we are really coming up on the end of this job, and we're coming up on the part of this house thing, the list of work Karen wanted to do in the beginning of the year. We're coming up on the end of that too. Just about the time the flying season is going to start and the wild hogs will come out of hibernation. And we'll see you on the next DVD.